my printer quit, and I didn't get 4, 5, 6, and 7.
I know.
I got the first 3 before it broke.
Really shouldn't blame us.
She's not even in town. If she were in town, I could have fixed it.
You been well?
I'm doing fine. Busy.
You ready to rock and roll? Good thing.
Somehow, yes
All
and
the
no.
alternative, better than the alternative.
That's right. Much better.
Angela, you ready?
But it also helps if your printer doesn't malfunction.
We would like to call the February 17, 2015 Board of Zoning Appeals meeting to order. If you would, please stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance with us. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This time I'd like to introduce the board members, starting on my right.
Jim Hilly?
Walter Recook.
Gary Willis.
Christopher Bluer. Todd Chernick.
The Board of Zoning Appeals is a quasi-legal board composed of resident volunteers of the City of Milton. The board is charged with hearing requests for variances from the standards of the zoning ordinance and appeals of administrative determinations. With regard to decisions of primary variances, the board's basis for decisions is provided by these 4 considerations. A, relief if granted would not offend the spirit or intent of the ordinance. B, there are such extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property that the literal or strict application of the ordinance would create an unnecessary hardship due to size, shape, or topography, or other extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions not caused by the variance applicant. And C, relief if granted would not cause substantial detriment to the public good and surrounding properties. And D, that the public safety, health, and welfare are secured and substantial justice is done. Do we have a motion to adopt or amend the agenda as written?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to adopt the February 17, 2015 agenda as presented.
We have a second.
A second.
Any discussion? We have a motion to adopt the February 17, 2015 agenda as presented. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Passed unanimously. We need a motion to approve the January meeting minutes.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I'd also make a motion to approve the January 2015 meeting minutes as documented by the staff.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. Discussion? We have a motion to approve the January 2015 meeting minutes as presented by staff. All in favor, raise your right hand.
I wasn't here.
Opposed, same sign. Jim Hilly abstained.
Christopher Bluer abstains.
Abstained too.
4.
V15001 to reduce the side yard setback on the west property line from 25 feet to 18 feet. Angela, will you please present?
And I have one more hard copy of 2020. Good. Okay, thank you. B15001, the site, 2600 Grassview Drive. This is a single-family home located in the Bentgrass Farm subdivision. The 1.10 acre lot is owned AG1 and is located in the rural Milton overlay. The applicant, Mr. Brian Weil, proposes to construct a 24 by 24 foot detached garage 18 feet from his west property line. He has stated that his family has grown since they've moved in, and they need the extra space for homeschooling and various other activities. There will be a second floor living space as well. There is a row of mature lealands along the west property line. Section 64-416 CI states that the interior side yard setback for property zoned AG1 is 25 feet. Since the applicant wants to place a garage 18 feet from the property line, a variance is required. The Design Review Board met on December 2nd, 2014, and offered the following comments. Prior to the BZA meeting, you'll need to provide actual drawings of what you want to build. You should work with your architect to come up with a building whose character matches that of the existing house. The materials should match as well. You can build an attached garage 22 feet wide, starting from the gable of the main house, and you won't need a variance. Also, consider building a detached garage, a detached carriage house type of building behind the house out of the setback. Talk to your neighbors to come up with an agreeable solution. The staff held a focus meeting on December 4th, 2014, at which the following comments were provided. Site plan review, arborist, and DOT stormwater had no comments. The architect offered the following comments. The need for this request appears to be self-induced. The applicant can attach an addition to the middle of the main house's gable. No variance would be needed then. The addition should match the materials and character of the main house. The city architect should review and approve the building plans. The standards for consideration were read earlier, and the applicant responds as follows. We love living in Milton and our neighborhood, and would prefer to stay in our house rather than moving if possible. We have considered other locations on our lot for our structure, but the left side of our house seems to be the most suitable location. Our backyard slopes toward our house, and most of the water drains to the right side of the house. Also, our air conditioner, gas line, septic tank, and main water cleanout drain are located on the right side of our house. We will make every effort to ensure that the architecture of the structure will match that of our house and other houses in the neighborhood. There are many trees on our property, which also serves as a buffer from surrounding properties. Staff response. If the intent of the side yard setback is to provide a minimum distance between structure and lot line, and therefore uniformity to the neighborhood, this proposal does not meet the intent. There are no extraordinary conditions on this lot that would prevent an addition from being built. There is ample space on the property to build an addition to the existing house, even without disturbing utilities and drainage on the right side. The applicant can add an addition into the back of the house or the side where the gable end peaks, or he can add a carriage house style detached garage further back on the property. There are several options that would keep the addition out of the minimum side yard. Approving this request would not be a substantial detriment to the public, as there are other houses in the neighborhood that have detached garages, although most of the additions are attached to the main house. While this addition would not harm the public safety, health, and welfare, the garage, in its current location, may infringe on the adjoining neighbor's expectations of distance and uniformity. Denying this variance would not prohibit the applicant's use of this property, since there are other locations that the structure can be built on. Recommended conditions. Should the board choose to approve the application, the staff recommends the following conditions. The garage materials should match those of the existing house. The design of the garage should be approved by the city architect. Staff recommendation. Staff recommends denial of this request. This concludes the staff presentation.
Thank you. Any questions from the board members to staff?
Please.
Yes, sir.
Angela, do we have any letters from any of the adjoining neighbors? I don't see them in the packet at all.
No, I didn't get any letters.
Okay.
One of the neighbor did appear at the DRB, but I don't have any letters.
Okay, and the individual that appeared at the DRB, were they for or against, and where did they live in comparison to the applicant?
Basically, they were against.
And can you tell me where they lived?
They were adjacent. If you're standing in front of the house, I believe they were to the left.
So they were on the side
Yeah.
that is proposed for this. Okay, great, thank you.
Yes, sir.
One of the points the staff made was that they were opposed to because the gable could be extended. Can you show me what you're talking about?
I didn't get that picture. Where'd you get that?
It's there.
Oh, back
If
one.
you look at that,
It's a later edition. It was something she sent out today.
She sent it.
No.
on page 9 of 11,
Yes, yes,
The
ma'am.
bottom one, they could, probably not extending the gable, but you can add an addition in that area.
This way.
And is that, and I'm sorry, Walt, is that where the garage is, that's the west side where that door is right now?
That's what I believe.
That-
Yes,
No,
sir.
that's what I mean, that's what I believe as well, I'm just kind of,
Is there a plot plan? There's no plot plan, is there? That's weird. No site plan or plot plan.
The stamp saying they can.
Do we have a site plan?
Here or back there?
I think it's there, I think it's right here.
That's the front, that's right there. That'd be way back there by the street, that'd be back here.
Tax.
Don't mind sharing? This is from the, maybe doodle on.
How many do we have?
I think so.
Here, if you want a
This is
copy.
pool.
Pass that down, then you can show this one to me.
This is something different. That's not us.
Now, I notice on the information you've handed out to us, the address is different than the
Yeah, it is.
address on
It
the application.
Fine, well.
It's a different,
It's 2600 versus 260.
Should be 2600 Grassview Drive.
Okay. It's probably what's causing me where I can't look it up.
Ask a-
Yes, sir.
So related to Walt's inquiry, is it staff's position that if they had the addition attached to the structure, the existing home, that they would not need a variance?
I think we figured that he could do a 22-foot addition if he attached it directly to the house. That would keep him out of the setbacks.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Again, I'm just trying to understand, to extend the gable,
Well, that, I
I-
may have stated
I don't quite understand. I think they are putting a gabled roof, and it does look like maybe it's standalone. I'm just trying to understand what is being asked for that's different.
Well, basically, they can attach the new addition directly to the side of the garage where the doors are. It wouldn't be so much extending the gable as, I don't know, creating a new one, I guess.
Okay.
Okay.
And as far as moving the building closer to the house, it looks like, at least on the plan that was submitted to the, I guess the other board, it kind of shows the house is, this new structure as being a standalone, a detached structure versus an attached.
Correct.
Right,
Correct.
Mr. Weil is proposing a detached
Detached.
structure.
And isn't there a requirement that detached houses have to be a certain distance away from a house? Is there anything that says?
That would be a building code issue. I don't know of a minimum.
I thought there were some
yeah,
fire codes.
Yeah, there are fire
There
codes.
probably are, I mean, that's just a matter of
Yeah, because if you're storing
fire
flammable
rating,
material
you
in
know.
that, yeah.
You just have to use particular building materials. But
think
I
there
don't, we
is
don't
a-
have a minimum.
Okay.
Any other
That can be
questions?
addressed through the materials, I should say.
At this time, we'd like to invite the applicant forward to present, and if you would state your name and address for the board, we'd certainly appreciate it.
Been at a couple meetings already, so.
No worries.
Sorry about that. Well, no, I think it'll hold, it's just that, it's been with me for a little while, so.
It's been used.
Good evening, my name is Brian Weil. I live at 2600 Grassview Drive with my wife and 3 children. As Angela stated, I've been in the house for about 10 years, and when we first moved there, we didn't have any kids, now we have 3. I work from home, my wife homeschools 1, next year possibly 2 children, so we're kind of running out of space quickly. You know, we love Milton and we would love to stay in the area, but we need a little more room. So, in addition to what she said, you know, there are several reasons why we think, you know, a detached garage would be really the best solution and really the only plausible solution. Building the attached garage we've talked to a couple different builders and architects, both of which feel like attaching on would require significant structural modifications to our existing house, just the way it is currently. And they said they felt that the detached garage probably actually, design-wise, would look better. You would be able to set it back a little bit farther. With the attached structure, you're having to pull it forward on the house more. There's also there's a chimney and several vents that would need to be worked around if you did the attached structure on that side. And something that I didn't mention at the last board review meeting, and something that I didn't even realize, I guess, until recently, is that our house is positioned at the top of a hill, and so our driveway is pretty kind of steep. So if we built the attached garage, it would have to be tied to our existing structure of the house. So which means that you would have to essentially build it a little bit taller to make it kind of fit in with the existing structure, a little more forward, and that would take up a lot of the usable kind of flat parking area that we have up there currently. I mean, you'd essentially be parking on the driveway, which is pretty sloped. Also, the way our driveway is positioned, I don't know if you saw some of the pictures in there, but if I build a 22-foot attached garage, that would be the minimum space required to probably fit 2 cars in there, a little van and a truck. There really wouldn't be enough space to safely pull in and out of the garage, because directly behind the right bay would be a tree, a rock, our lawn, and other landscaping. I mean, it's difficult now, even without a garage there, to kind of, if you park on that close to the house, I mean, it takes lots of different turns to kind of get down the driveway. So building it, you know, 5 or 7 feet away from the house would give us more room to kind of maneuver our vehicle down the driveway. And so, I mean, and I just noticed that recently. I was like, well, 22-foot would work, but it'd be very difficult. Our attached garage maybe would work, but it would be very difficult to kind of maneuver in the driveway and wouldn't leave any place for anybody to park on the driveway. So, you know, those are, that's probably one of the biggest reasons why, you know, the attached garage those are the biggest problems I think it would present for us there. You know, and our neighbors, I think they're mostly, you know, concerned about privacy and the saleability of their house. As Angela mentioned, there's a row of large, tall Leland cypresses separating our 2 properties, which are very thick, and you really can't even see through them. So that kind of addresses the privacy concern. And I would, you know, we've talked about it. Actually, I've talked to my neighbors on several occasions here since we've been going through this process. And, you know, I told them I'll gladly maintain that barrier. I want as much privacy as they do. And also agreed not to put a window on that left side, so there would be no, you know, overlooking their property. And with respect to the saleability, I mean, I discussed my plans with a real estate agent, Diane Payne from Berkshire Hathaway, and she's very familiar with the area. She's been working in this area for a long time, and she discussed my plans too with an appraiser, and both felt that, you know, the detached garage wouldn't negatively impact the value of our property or any adjoining properties. And in fact, adding value to my house would only increase the value of other homes, they felt. So, and, you know, we would make every effort to ensure that the new structure would match the existing architecture of our house and other homes in the neighborhood. And one last thing, I did, you know, propose to my neighbors a compromise. I was like, you know, I suggested maybe building a 22-foot garage instead of a 24-foot, which would only require a 5-foot variance versus a 7-foot. So that's something else that I discussed with them. But I think probably from what you'll hear, you know, they don't really want anything built on that side of the house. So that's really all I've got. So.
Yes, sir. Questions?
From your site plan, or from your drawings actually you submitted, what's the length of the breezeway that you're proposing that would attach the existing structure to the detached garage?
It'd be 5 feet.
5-foot breezeway, okay.
And it would only, the detached garage in the house would be attached by the breezeway at the back corner of the house and the front corner of the garage. That way we could push it back. It'd make the garage seem less, you know, massive. From the street, it wouldn't be quite as, you know, it wouldn't seem quite as big as doing a
So you're
attached
attaching it to the rear corner of the house,
Right.
maintaining the existing two-car garage side entry,
I would,
plus these, the two, which would, from the addition, which would be front-facing, street-facing.
yeah. Well, we're gonna be converting the existing two-car garage that's attached to our house to an indoor living space, to add more space. And then we would, of course, be adding the new two-car detached garage for parking.
And can you then also explain to me, I can't see this from the drawings, you're proposing that the second level of the garage is finished living space?
It would serve as probably just, I would maybe use it as my office, because I work from home, so I'd maybe move my office out to that second-story living space to kind of, because right now, I'm kind of sharing a room with one of my kids. So,
Right. So in that proposed living space, is that fully heated and cooled living space that you're?
the upstairs would be heated and cooled, more than likely with like a ductless system or something like that, possibly. There would likely be no plumbing, but possibly electrical.
All right, and then would there be an interior staircase or an exterior staircase?
Interior.
Interior, so that's consuming part of your 24-foot.
Yeah, you'd have to go probably at the end of the garage, you know, on the rear wall.
Okay.
Yeah,
Those were my questions,
it
thank
would be
you.
done on the outside,
Do you all have a homeowners
you
association?
know.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I'm just trying to make sure I'm looking at the picture correctly. This is what would be facing the street, is that correct?
No, actually, I sent Angela some updated,
I got the one in your packet.
yeah, here's I got a couple here if you need them.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm looking at this picture now, right?
Yes, sir, that is
So would this be the facing down the driveway?
Yes, sir.
Okay? And what would be the side nearest your neighbor? Would it be, which of these four views would be the
Well-
side nearest your neighbor?
It would be the side without the door. But although I have a window there now, I didn't discuss it with them, and I would
So
eliminate that window.
you're saying that one right there in the upper corner?
Yep.
The
Okay,
door
so
there,
that's,
the side of the door would be the
Left side elevation.
breezeway.
okay, so that's the west side of the house, or the possible extension. So I would imagine the other side that's opposite would be the east, and then
It's labeled
south
the
and
right side
north.
elevation,
Yeah,
right?
right side would be east, left would be
Okay,
west.
and again, where's the staircase? Now, in the original plan I saw, where's the door coming out? I guess I'm just trying to understand how you're getting in and out. Is that coming out on the side nearest the
So it'd
house?
be That door, the door
Sure.
on the diagram
Right,
would be where the breezeway connects
Okay.
to the existing house, our existing house.
okay.
You know, the staircase going upstairs would be on the interior, probably at the end of the garage.
Okay. I notice in your neighborhood, it looks like many of your garages are single-door garages. Am I incorrectly making that statement?
Directly across the street, there's our next door neighbors directly across the street, Tom and Claire Moquin. They have a three-car garage and they're three separate doors. And actually, the garage that I'm proposing would be the same, pretty much the same architecture as theirs, except theirs was attached because they had the room to make a three-car attached garage. But it would pretty much match that architecture. And by the way, they're directly across the street and they're looking up at our house and they're in approval of this. I mean, so wholeheartedly approve of this.
So let me ask some more questions. Septic tank, there's a mention that there might be some issues with the septic tank. Can you show me on your diagram that you've got on your poster over there?
Sure.
Where that septic tank is and how that's impeding perhaps having a structure in the back of the house?
Sure. Well, as you can see on the back of the yard, this is actually, this is flat up here, but it slopes toward the house. So there's a retaining wall, which doesn't really leave me a lot of space. I mean, I can't really push it back too far because there's a retaining wall right there. And that's sloped right there too. But all the water pretty much slopes and goes around the house. It's like a river that runs around that side of the house when it rains really hard. And we've got actually catch basins and drainage pipes on the back side of the house. And the septic tanks are actually on the right side of the house. There's drain fields in the front, and the septic tanks are over here on the right side. And then all along down the side is our gas, 2 air conditioner units, water, and main clean out. So, I mean, moving all of those utilities would be, cost prohibitive. Plus, like I said, I mean, it's not really flat over there. It's sloped, and I mean, all the water goes down that side of the yard.
Do you happen to know where your secondary septic field would be? In other words, if your first field failed, where would your second field be?
It would all be on this right side of the house, on the opposite side from where the garage is located. I mean, I had the septic tank pumped maybe 2 years ago, and there's two tanks right there, and I think all the drain fields are like in the front yard, the front side of the yard on the opposite side of the garage.
Okay. Normally, you can't put your new field line in the same location as the old field line. So normally, I would presume it would be some other area that would be cleared. Even if you had to pump it to the back, that's probably where it would go, somewhere in the back. But again, you may have bad soils in the back. I don't know. I'm just trying to understand why the carriage house couldn't be completely separated and put in the rear of the house. Walls can be built, walls can be destroyed, retaining walls, drainage. I'm just trying to understand what kind of hardship we're looking at, why this is not an option.
Well, I mean, I think that as far as the backyard is concerned, I mean, we'd like to have a structure that's kind of close to our existing house. And that there's really not enough room to add along the back. I think it would look very unusual adding a detached structure anywhere else on the property. Plus, I don't know that it would kind of be very accessible to us. I think that would be the primary concern.
Well, your problem, I guess, is if you did what your neighbor did across the street, you couldn't put a 3-car garage.
No.
You could only have a 2-car garage, and you're looking at potential, as you say in your letter, don't you have your father-in-law or father, or perhaps worse, your mother-in-law coming? And
Well, yeah, I know. We're trying to plan for those things too. So, I mean, we've got, definitely.
so there'll be a number of vehicles that will have to be negotiated to get people in and out.
Yeah.
So 3
Yeah.
cars is pretty much essential for what your number of spaces are. And you say presently you have a pickup truck, and what else do you have?
Well, we've got a pickup truck and a van, but we're actually going to convert our existing 2-car garage to like an indoor living space. So we'll, in the end, only have 2 garage spaces, but in building the attached garage, we have to pull it forward on the house, which would eliminate a lot of the parking area that we currently have. And that could be an issue because parking is already an issue, like at our house, because even with, that upper area, I mean, it doesn't leave a lot of room to park. So if we pull that attached garage forward, then you have to park on the street or on the driveway, which is sloped. And like I said, I mean, the attached garage just wouldn't give, I don't even know how you would maneuver in and out of that garage very easily the way
I know in my neighborhood, we can't park a car. All cars have to be parked in a garage. We can't have a car continuously left outside. Do you have any kind of regulation like that in your neighborhood?
I don't
that
think we
you're
have
aware of?
regulations for that, but I think most people don't park their cars on the street or I think most people do park their cars in the garage.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir. Sure.
I'm sorry, Samantha. Okay. One question, I'm just, for clarification, what I have from a drawing and what you have on the, from my bottom left, show the placement of this garage a little bit differently. I just want to make sure that I understand what you're requesting. This garage is not in parallel to the property, it's set back a little bit from the front of the house. My map shows it set back dramatically. It's mine's hand drawn. So,
You're back 5 feet from the house, correct?
I mean, they would only be adjoining at the back, like the back.
right,
corner of
okay,
our house,
that's just not what I
front corner
have shown.
of the garage.
Okay, but you're fine,
You have the blue.
Yes.
Yeah, ignore the blue ink.
okay, that, I'm looking at blue ink saying I'm confused, okay.
Sorry.
Any other
The
questions?
detached garage would allow us to push that garage back, and actually it'd be a shorter, I think
Sure.
we wouldn't have to make it quite as tall as an attached garage, which I think would, you know, in the end, I think our neighbors would actually think it's a better looking structure, but, you know.
Yeah.
So how far back is that? I'm looking at this picture right here. So how far back is that retaining wall?
It's hard to say, maybe
What is that
20
distance?
feet,
20 feet?
yeah, maybe.
It's crossed out. I
And it,
can't
maybe
Yeah,
less.
I don't know.
And I know it
This is
ends-
just when we're supposed to even be
and it
using
ends
it,
right
so.
there. So what else is beside that space? You still
On the
got,
right side?
yeah, to the right side. You still have some,
The retaining wall?
yeah.
I mean, it's sloped.
It's sloped a little bit.
Yeah,
How-
it's sloped
how much
all
of a
down,
slope?
and pretty much all our yard up there, all the water drains down to the lower portion of the backyard below the retaining wall, and then it goes to the right. So pretty much that's the way it would be. On that side, I don't know how you would, adjoin it to our existing house too, so that would be, sort of
But I'm
want
not
like
sure
an
that's
adjoining
right.
structure, that still have it, set back far enough that, not far enough to where you couldn't adjoin it with our existing house.
Okay. And so all the way to the back, I mean, there's a slope all the way back here.
Yeah, it's sloped and then it kind of slopes down to the front yard. And so the backyard slopes down, and it keeps kind of sloping down.
But here on the left where you're proposing it, the layout of the land is,
Where the garage would be built
right?
is flat, and then it starts sloping up and then levels off in the backyard. So where we'd be actually building it is relatively flat and will require very little disturbance of the soil, very little movement there.
I'm also trying to understand, I'm looking at your survey, and I know it's probably the previous owner's survey of the property. Did everybody get one of these? But it shows that the distance from at least the very rear of the house to the property line is 47.1 feet. Is that what you show? Is that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the house, or the proposed building is going to be 24 foot in width. Now, that's not including the eaves, but that's the main body of the walls. So if I subtract those two numbers, you come up with 23 feet. Then in addition, you're saying you're going to have at least 5 foot, so someone could walk between the two buildings. I think that's what you're trying to do. But I also noticed that this side property line is angled. Is that correct? It's not actually in a straight line or parallel to that wall. It's actually sloping away from that wall. So basically, the distance that house is going to be on that back corner of the proposed garage is actually going to be greater than 18 feet away from that sideline.
Yeah, that could be true.
Okay. Next question. You mentioned that you would be possibly willing to not have any windows on that side, or any openings, I should say, be it windows or doors. But you also mentioned about landscaping. Are you contending that you would potentially put some type of evergreen that would be established along that property line? Or between your house and the property line?
It's already there. There's probably 20-foot tall, or taller. They're probably like 30 or 40-foot tall Leland cypresses that are fairly large, and I mean, it's pretty dense foliage, so you can't see through. And I've spoken with Will, my neighbor, and we've discussed it, and I would definitely make every effort to maintain that buffer between our two properties.
But what if those trees die? There's nothing that would protect that neighbor in the future if something does die.
Well, you'd have to plant some other trees, which would,
So if there was a
grow pretty
condition there that said that an established screen shall be placed there that would substantially obscure the view, that would be something that you'd be amenable to.
Yeah, oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Go ahead.
One last question, I'm sorry, sir. I just pulled up a different map just of your property. It looks like on the northeast side, in the back, there's an additional structure?
Yeah, that's like a workshop that I have.
Okay, is there, oh, is that theirs? Okay, I thought that was a neighbor, I'm sorry. Is it one or two buildings that are back there?
It's got a building that sits on a slab. It's a 16 by 20-foot slab.
Okay,
And it's basically my workshop. I keep,
sure, no, I
workbench and all that stuff.
Right,
Okay, so in behind it, I've got a 10 by 10-foot metal little shed for my lawn equipment. So, and it's kind of smaller, so it's kind of hidden back there.
okay, I'm good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. At this time, we'd like to open the floor for public comment. If there is any, please come forward, state your name and address.
Mr. Wall, could you do the yellow card for me?
Thank you.
And if you're both going to speak, you'll need 2 cards. But you can fill one out when you get down. If you'd state your name and address to the board, we'd certainly appreciate it.
Sure. I'm Liz. This is Will Covington. We live at 2590 Grassview Drive. So we are Brian's neighbors. We're facing the house. We're on the left-hand side. We came to the last meeting, and primarily what our concern is that, we love Milton. We love the neighborhood. We searched for 9 months to find our house, and our biggest concern was that we did not want to be living in a house that was right on top of the other house. We found this house, and it was a little bit closer than we had wanted, but we were okay with that because there was ample distance between the houses, and there was nothing along the fence line. However, since we've moved in there, now there's being proposed that detached garage, which we feel is way too close, 7 more feet, that's closer to our fence line. We already have one of the closest houses together in the neighborhood. There's actually 2 chicken coops that was built once we moved in that are right on the fence line as well. So I think our concern is that adding the detached garage back there is going to be a whole line of structure. So we'll have chicken coop, and then also the detached garage, and we're just worried it's going to impact our privacy and possibly the resale value. We know as buyers we would have run the other way. We would not have purchased this house if there was anything on our fence line and properties that were so close. So we are concerned about that. We do know that something will be built regardless. We understand that, and we can't stop that. We are in favor more of the attached garage because it's more in line with our house, and it's not going to really affect us if we walk outside and we're sitting in our yard. We're not even going to really notice it. We would just rather maintain, the distance between our houses and, keep it as far as possible from our house.
Any questions?
I don't have much more to add except for just to reiterate with Brian, we have no ill will on what happens, but I want to make sure you guys have what we submitted last month was the kind of the distance overlay of the street. Well,
We have not seen that.
And then there was a property kind of overview from Google Maps just showing that we were already, there's 6 properties on the street, and we're 2 of those 6 that are already the closest 2 on the street. And this addition would make it the closest, and in our opinion, the least desirable for resale.
Sure.
We're trying to avoid that.
So let me ask you a question. What could he do to build this garage that would make you happy?
Mr. Chairman, just before I just want to confirm that
Okay.
we have what he's
Okay,
talking
sure.
about.
Absolutely, Counselor.
Well, our preference is to have nothing built on our property, but obviously if it's not a variance concern, there's nothing we can do about it. But the happiest solution is not favorable for anything construction related, would be on the other side to balance out the property or in the back. But I've been kind of involved in his exploration of these other things, and you're right, this is the most cost prohibitive thing for him to do, and we've got to do what's right for his family, but it's in agreement with what we want.
And
We're in a hard spot.
we've driven around the neighborhood and, seeing that our houses are pretty close together. I think that there's a reason why there aren't any detached
That's where they wanna
garages,
put the
because
garage.
there's just not enough space between the houses. In our property, we're one of I think maybe 3 of the properties that has that detached carriage house along in the back of the property, which we actually have plenty of space. The other house on the other side is probably 60 feet away, so we have space for that. So we're just, wanting to preserve that privacy.
I've got a question. Sure. If I may ask, is there a screen between you and the adjoining house? Is there a fairly thick screen that obscures your view of that proposed structure?
The trees that Brian was talking about are fairly thick.
Okay.
I mean,
Established.
but being in the backyard, I can still see through them. I can see everything in their backyard. I can see the kids running around, which is fine. And that is a concern that, maybe if that was maintained, but I still would prefer more of the privacy with nothing along the fence line. Because right now it's turning into, the entire fence is built with structures, that is what we wanted to avoid. That's why we bought the house.
You don't have a swimming pool that's going to get shaded by this structure.
No.
Okay,
And
this is-
then that's the balance of having too much of the tree.
I understand.
We both have yards that
That's
we
right.
want to be shaded.
That's why I asked the question.
Thank you. Any other public comment? At this time, the applicant has the right to make a closing statement, or rebuttal, or anything you'd like to say. If it's all up to you, sir. If you come back to the
come back up to
microphone,
the
please.
mic. Sorry.
I guess in response to the fact that there's no other detached garages, there really are. I mean, it's fairly eclectic neighborhood. The structures vary from house to house. They're not cookie cutter houses. There's a carriage house across the street from us. There's a 3-car attached garage. There's barns down the street. There's other types of sheds and storage structures. I mean, there's small houses. There's big homes. The distance varies from house to house. I mean, from 50 feet to probably hundreds of feet. So I don't think it would look unusual having, even after building the detached garage, there would still be 50 feet between our houses, over 50 feet between our houses. And like you stated, the back edge of my detached garage would actually be not even as close as the front of the detached garage, I guess. That would be my only comment. And, as far as, I think that, like I said, we would do everything we could to make sure that it fit the architecture of our house and the architecture of our neighborhood. We were planning to repaint our entire house to make sure that the paint colors match and the shingles match and the windows match and everything matches. So, and I think with the trees already being 40 foot tall, there's no way our structure would cast any shadow over their yard or our house. So that's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any questions to staff from the board? At this time, I'd like, go ahead, yes, sir?
So, I guess I just felt surprised that the request was denied. Any other comment around that? I know it's in the setback, but it's just it's just a garage. It's not a commercial building or.
Well, I have to go by the 4 considerations, and it's not or, it's he's supposed to meet all 4 considerations, and it was just staff's opinion that there was nothing extraordinary or exceptional about the property that prevented him from doing anything else. We didn't feel that he had no other options. Some may be more expensive, some may require more work to the site or the house, but there are other options.
Any idea on what the cost of these are? Or?
No, but that's really not something we're
Right.
supposed to look at.
Yeah.
Can I say one more thing? Sorry.
No, sir. Any other questions of staff? This time, we'd like to close the public hearing, and the floor is open for a motion. Sure.
I'd like to make a motion for approval of V15-001. This is to reduce the side yard setback on the west property line from 25 feet to 18 feet based on section 64-416, C, I, with the following conditions. One, that the garage materials shall match those of the existing house. Two, the design of the garage shall be approved by the city architect. Three, no windows or doors, door openings shall be placed on the west side of the structure, of the garage. And then number four, to plant an additional row of Leland cypresses between the property line and the house as required by the landscape architect, city's landscape architect, or arborist, I should say, city's arborist.
Do we have a second?
A second.
We have a motion, a second discussion.
Let me
Yes.
explain why I made that motion, if I can.
Sure.
I think the 18 feet is a situation where that may be a measurement at the front of the house, but as you move back on the garage, the actual distance may be a little bit greater. And I do believe that there's a fairly good opaque screening there, but again, 30 feet tall tells me that those trees are at probably their top of their age and perhaps could die. And that's why I want to make sure we get another row going to perpetually screen that area. The third thing is I think that I do see other garages in that neighborhood that are three-car garages or potential, and I understand the need for doing something like this. I do probably presume, and whether the applicant said or not, I think you'll find that there's probably the reserve septic field is probably in the rear of the house, and to move it around, you're going to have a little bit of issues in finding it. Don't know that for sure, but that would typically, a builder normally doesn't clear a backyard unless they know that it's going to be a reserve area. That's kind of my reasoning. I think it stands that there's other places in the neighborhood where there are garages, and I feel like this one would be more or less in keeping, provided that he does the architectural work to make it similar.
Any discussion?
Go ahead. I'll tell you what concerns me most about this, that to the neighbor's point, that when they move in there, they expect a certain amount of privacy and of enjoyment. When we change the rules of the game and to allow a structure to impede upon that, how fair, that's fair to the applicant, but how fair is that to the neighbor? And if they've come forward and they are saying, hey, this bothers us, they've tried to work things out, they seem very amenable, obviously, but they're saying, this is just not what we expected, this is not why we purchased their house. We're now changing something that's going to affect people and going to affect what their expectation was when they bought this. And I don't think that's appropriate.
Looking at the conditions that are required for a variance, as the staff has done. Impact of surrounding properties is certainly something, one of the considerations, and we've heard an argument for that. The size, shape, and topography point that Angela brought up, it seems to me like there's other options, including an L-shaped structure where it's a single-car garage and they maintain the existing two-car garage, which gives them, the flexibility of parking, additional parking space, garage space, and additional living space that would be wrapped around the rear of the property, not impacting the side yard neighbor. So, and I think staff heavily considered that there are other options that would not impose or require a variance. So that's what I'm weighing in my thinking.
Okay. I understand exactly both of your points, and again, I kind of look at, what is 7 feet? I know that 7 feet is like 2 feet. It's just 3 times as much, or whatever. I understand that, but again, I don't see this adjoining house being right next to this house. It's got a garage with a driveway on that side. It's not like that house is, I would strongly disagree if the two houses were. If that other house was right up against the line at the minimum distance, then I can see where they have a very valid point. But again, with the house being so much further away, I'm not sure you would notice it being at 18 feet.
The house is far away, the yard is not. If we were talking about 40 acres between properties, I get it. And I'm like, it's like, sure, this is a no-brainer. But we're talking about a lot that is standard size, and that they're in their side yard, that building's right on top of them.
I think it's as much as that house, the adjoining
I'm
house
not
is
talking about
60
the house,
feet.
I'm talking about their yard, their
Okay.
backyard structure is or backyard, excuse me.
Sure.
From their property line.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so, again, I understand what you're saying. I guess,
We disagree.
well, and, could it be moved, instead of having a 5-foot walkway between the house, could it be 3? And pick up an extra 2 feet?
But I think that's to some degree my point, Walt, and to what Todd was saying. There seem to be other options. They may not be financially attractive options, but we all have choices we have to make.
Right, and that's kind of what I'm thinking. If you move the house or this garage structure back, you may get to the 25-foot point. In other words, it may be 15 or 16 feet further back than what it's shown right now.
Sure.
And maybe the back wall of the garage is a retaining wall, but does that change the condition in which the resident next door is going to have? I would say no. In fact, to me, it would look worse. It would be where those front windows of that proposed structure would actually be looking into that other house instead of maybe more in front. But again, there are other options. I agree with you.
Sure.
Could you make the house narrower? Sure, but that's why I made the point about having single-car garages. If you had a double-car garage, you can make the garage narrower. You could go with a 22-foot, but that would require that you would have a single garage door, not a double garage door. And I think from a standpoint of architecturally, a double garage door doesn't look quite as good as a single car.
Sure.
So that's the other point that I was thinking, that, if I had to look at the aesthetics of the whole neighborhood, if I compromised on the width of the structure, am I really benefiting everyone? Would someone really notice 7 feet if it was 7 feet, 5 feet, 3 feet, 2 feet? I'm not sure anybody would notice.
Any other discussion? Yes, sir.
I mean, I think, kind of like Chris was saying, I think it's about the fact that there potentially are other options that are out there. I understand that there may be cost prohibitive, there's, different factors that you got to look into it. But I think people would generally, this happens all the time for people, right? They've got to decide, okay, well, does this house work for me, or do I need to find another house? Is that what I need to do? Is there another way of adding on an addition to the house? Where can I do that? Again, if we need to look back at the spirit and intent of what this is about, and I don't know if we've even explored what other options are out there and how much those may cost, and where else could this be placed, or could this be a little smaller of a structure? You know, what else could be done so that you can actually still get what you want to get, somewhat, I guess, but be in line with what the law is, and not grant a variance for something when, I mean, you've got, I mean, there's a ton of yard back there, you know. I understand that there may be some costs associated with that, but, you know, everybody's got to make those choices, and sometimes you've got to decide, okay, well, this house may not work for me, you know, because I want to do all these things, but I can't because it's going to cost too much. Well, does it make sense for me to buy another house, you know, versus the cost of me adding on whatever else to this? I mean, everybody makes those choices, you know. People buy and sell houses all the time. So I think here there's a couple of things. One is just the fact that I don't know if you've been explored, or we've heard, or has the applicant explored all the other options to really see if there's another way of just figuring it out and putting it somewhere else. And do we want to, you know, grant a variance or something when there's all those possibilities that are still out there?
Any discussion?
So do we figure out when you said, the architect said attached garage to the gable of the main house? Did we ever figure out what that meant?
I think they misspoke. I think Walt was right on that.
Where, yeah, so what is the real option there? What is our other options as far as you could tell, Walt? I mean, looking
I
at this-
think
looking at this
what the
picture right
architect
here.
was really trying to say is if you look at the house across the street, that's really what they were talking
That's
about.
attached to the gable
I
there.
think you're right.
Yeah, that's what I think they were.
But that would still, they couldn't do a three-car garage then, it's still,
No, it'd still be a two-car, but they could do that, and what the architect was saying, they could do that and still be within the lot lines.
I don't understand how.
Well, they would just have two cars, and they're saying they're gonna screen in the other car, two-car garage anyway. But, you know, that's today and tomorrow.
So we do think there's options then?
There's always options.
Seems to be.
I
I
agree.
mean, what about the option of, I mean, Walt, you know, you've done a lot of this before,
Sure.
but adding on something to the back of the house. There's 20 feet.
They can move it back. My guess is 16 to 20 feet, and they could still put it in more or less the same direction, but it'd be a longer driveway and.
But I'm saying, like, from a financial standpoint, I mean, how,
I
I
don't-
mean, you know.
I'm sorry.
It doesn't matter. I mean,
Really,
cost
like, I mean,
cost
are
isn't.
you really talking about, let's just not, I mean, not specific numbers, but are you really talking about that much more to potentially do that where you've got that space in the back of your
You know,
house?
whether they spend it on retaining walls or Leland cypresses, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's probably going to be a wash. They'll have to pour a longer driveway to get back there. You know, what would it look like? I mean, there's other options. I'm not saying it's impossible. There's a slope back there, but again, I don't think that's, I wouldn't use that as
Too
a
late for me
reason to
to
vote
ask
in my
questions,
direction.
Ken.
I think that.
Too late.
Or, I think we could probably open up the floor again. If you wanted to ask staff a question, go
I did
ahead.
have a question for Counselor. Counselor, I think HPG stands for Health Trust Purchasing Group, is that, I think? is it- Oh, it's different, okay.
Yeah, I get calls all the time.
I was going to recuse myself because HPG is a customer of mine, so, never mind, Counselor.
Any other discussion? All right, we have a motion to approve V15-001 to reduce the side yard setback on the west property line from 25 feet to 18 feet, section 64-416, C, I, with the following conditions. Number one, the garage materials shall match those of the existing house. Number two, the design of the garage shall be approved by the city architect. Number three, no doors or windows on the west side of the garage. And number four, plant additional Leland cypress between the property line and the house as required by the city arbors,
By the garage.
by the garage. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. It's denied 4-2.
That motion's,
That
the motion's,
failed.
the motion
Motion
fails.
failed. Correct. Motion
We need a
failed.
new motion.
Okay.
Everybody's pointing to me. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we deny V15-001.
We have a second?
Second.
Discussion. We have a motion to deny V15-001 to reduce the side yard setback on the west property line from 25 feet to 18 feet. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign.
You vote twice. It's not
I think we're 4-2.
That brings us to V15-002. Angela, will you please present?
B15-002, 14990 Birmingham Highway.
There's no water.
The site is a single-family home located on 2.4 acres in the rural Milton overlay. The property is zoned AG1. There is a man-made lake in the rear of the property. The applicant, Reeves Newsome, is the representative for the property owners, James and Valerie Martin. They propose to build a 594-square-foot pool, 38-square-foot spa, and 250 square feet of deck in their backyard. As proposed, the pool, spa, and deck will encroach 25 feet into the 75-foot impervious setback and 14 feet into the 50-foot stream pond buffer. Section 20-426I states that no disturbance or structures are allowed in the 50-foot stream or pond buffer. Section 20-426-2 states that no impervious surfaces are allowed in the 75-foot setback. Since the applicant proposes to construct a pool and deck that encroaches into the 50-foot stream pond buffer and the 75-foot impervious setback, 2 variances are required. On January 6, 2015, the DRB offered the following comments. Clad the retaining wall with some sort of natural material, i.e. stone, and screen the pool equipment. Staff held a focus meeting on January 4th, 2015, and the following comments were provided. Building plan review, site plan review, the architect, the arborist, and DOT stormwater had no comments. The standards for consideration for a stream buffer variance are a little different, so I'll go ahead and read them. The size, shape, topography, slope, soil, vegetation, and other physical characteristics of the property. The locations of all streams on the property, including along property boundaries. The location and extent of the proposed buffer or setback intrusion. Whether alternative designs are possible which require less intrusion or no intrusion. The long-term and construction water quality impact of the proposed variance. Whether issuance of the variance is at least as protective of natural resources and the environment. The applicant responds. The encroachment will affect a minimal percentage, 4.27%, of the buffer on the lot. No other structures will encroach into the buffer, only the pool. The principal residence is already located in the impervious setback. We are removing the existing stone walkways and decking to install a small amount of pool decking, and we will place the pool as closest to the house as possible. The home was built prior to the change in the stream buffers. The house is approximately 15 feet from the 50-foot stream pond buffer, creating an extraordinary circumstance. No alternative designs are possible that would require no intrusion. We are taking steps to protect the stream and buffer. 80% of the property will remain impervious. Staff response. The buffer requirements changed after the house is built. The existing house already encroaches into the 75-foot impervious setback. The applicant is building a retaining wall to minimize encroachment into the buffer and is proposing a rain garden in order to mitigate the runoff from the impervious surfaces in the buffer and setback. There is no area between the house and the pond that is not in the impervious setback or buffer. The pool cannot be built without intrusion into the buffers or impervious setback. The buffers changed after the existing home was built. This creates an extraordinary condition that is beyond the control of the homeowners. By minimizing the intrusion and mitigating the runoff, the proposed project will be protective of natural resources and the environment. Recommended conditions. Should the board choose to approve the application, staff recommends the following condition. Clad the retaining wall with stone to match the existing rock wall and walkway. Staff recommendation. Staff recommends approval with conditions of the request. This concludes the staff presentation.
Thank you. Any questions from the board to the staff?
Yeah, I do have one question.
Sure.
Angela, can you go through the additional considerations? I actually didn't see those in my packet. I had size, shape, and topography, location of the streams, alternate design.
Did I send out the wrong? Okay, I must have revised it. Okay. So the first one, the size, shape, topography, slopes, soils, vegetation, and other physical characteristics of the property. So that's taking into consideration, well, just like it says.
We need a plat.
The locations of all the streams on the property, including along property boundaries.
Because it's too hard for you to see where the buffers are.
As you can see, the existing house was built, pretty close to the pond, and the stream buffers, they stayed out of what was then the 25-foot setback. But now, the 75-foot impervious setback covers most of the house.
Do you have a bigger plat that we can look at? This is incredible
This one?
to be able to figure out what we're looking at.
Yes, I do. I have these.
Okay.
Full size.
Both sides.
Are these
She's
all the
taking
same?
care of us.
Angela, you mentioned size, shape, and topography, location of the streams. What were the other ones, please? The other consideration?
Oh, yeah, no. Next one is the location and the extent of the proposed buffer or setback intrusion. And as I stated earlier, the house is already located in the 75-foot impervious setback, and we just felt he was keeping his intrusion relatively small, 4.27% of the buffer will be intruded into. The next one, whether alternative designs are possible which require less intrusion or no intrusion. Basically, to put a pool on this property, it's going to intrude in the house, into the buffer or the impervious setback, one way or the other.
The 4.27%, is that our calculation or is the applicant's?
The applicants.
Yes, sir.
Hang on, should
sorry.
Then the other last two, if I have them right, water quality impact long-term.
The long-term and construction water quality impacts of the proposed variance, meaning what, by doing this construction, what is the long-term effect going to be on the buffers? The applicant is proposing a rain garden to mitigate the runoff. I would venture to say that if any major damage was going to be done to the buffer or the pond, it's already been done. I think this might even, with the rain garden there, with the mitigation, it might even help, because they weren't required to do,
condition, which is it has to be as at least protective.
of the natural resources and the environment.
Okay.
So they are taking steps to protect what's left of the buffer.
All right, thank you for going through that.
I apologize, I revised it after I sent it out.
No problem. Angela, on a building like this or a structure like this, is there a requirement by city code that the actual structure needs to be directly behind the house so that it's within the sideline projections of the sides of the house? In other words, I know in my subdivision, you have to do that. You cannot put it to a point where it could be seen from the street. By it being at this location, it's behind the house, so it can't be seen from the street. Is that also a city requirement?
The city ordinance allows a pool to go in the side or rear yards up to 10 feet from any property line. So definitely on the right-hand side. Unless you put the pool, a pretty good distance away from the house. It's going to be in a buffer. And same with the left.
Okay. And just to make sure I understand this, the dam for this pond must be on the adjoining property owner's land? In other words,
Let's look at the aerial.
an
I believe
option
it is.
always is you can lower the dam or lower the normal pool level.
Right, the
to
dam
change.
is on the adjacent properties.
Right.
Is on the adjacent property, as you can see from the aerial map.
So I know I've been in a situation where they actually lowered the pond level just so they could get out of a variance.
I would think that would be kind of a harsh solution. I would think that would do more harm than good, but I'm not an expert. But.
I understand. Interesting
idea, though.
Okay.
Well, on the flip side, has staff looked at the way this pond is constructed in the dam, the potential for this pond to expand from its current footprint?
No, I didn't look.
So you look at backwater effect of
At anything
100-year
like that.
flood. For
Well, there's an approximate limits of flood zone shaded on
Yeah,
the plot plan.
right.
Oh, thanks for pointing that out.
Yeah, it comes close to the pool, but not on the pool. It doesn't say that's a 100-year flood, but I bet that's what that is.
Okay.
So it's
I think you're right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it just says approximate limits of flood.
I think you're right.
I think you're,
By law, flood zone X is a FEMA term that's used for the 100-year flood.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Any other questions of staff? This time, we'd like to invite the applicant forward to please present. And if you'd state your address, name and address for the board, we'd certainly appreciate it.
Good evening. My name is Reeves Newsom with RCS Pool and Spa. My address is 915 Ferncroft Court in Roswell. I'm the applicant for James and Valerie Martin, and wanted to put it in a pool. And it's pretty well laid out by Angela of exactly what we are looking to do. We have discovered no other way of or location for installing a pool unless you want to go across the lake to the rear property line. It's outside of the buffer area. They are aware of what we wanted to do, and we also told them that we would probably need to increase the stormwater runoff filtration to the area. Currently, right now, as it stated right there as well, we are taking out existing walkways in order to push the pool closer to the house, and those walkways are going to get redone with a paver, but the pool takes up some of the impervious. So the calculations were actually done that you were asking about earlier were actually done by the surveyor. The new impervious surface we are going to do would be about 425 square feet. Okay? So there is existing impervious there. We're encroaching into that, removing all that, and putting it in, the pool in. The retaining wall, the pool is going to be out of ground on the pond side of the pool. So the pool is actually going to act as its own retaining wall. We build that way quite a few times, in particularly areas like this. So there won't be any additional, fill coming off of the elevation of the pool going down into there. that elevation that's on the back side of the pool will remain exactly where it is. The pool will come out level with the house and be level all the way around. And so the exposed wall will be whatever the lay of the land will be. So we're trying to use as much of the existing topography as we can, so as they can get what they're wanting to get, which is a pool and a spa, and have the least amount of encroachment into anything. So again, house was built in 2003 prior to any of the watershed issues. They had the 25-foot buffer, which is the state buffer, but these additional buffers came about, I believe, once Milton came into existence. So.
Any questions to the applicant from the board members? Thank you, sir. This time the floor is open for public comment. Sir, as there is none, you do have the opportunity to make a rebuttal or a closing statement. Any questions to staff from the board? This time we'd like to close the public hearing. The floor is open for a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to approve V15-002 to allow pool and pool deck to encroach in the 50-foot stream pond buffer, and to allow pool and pool deck to encroach in the 75-foot impervious setback, subject to the site plan dated October 1st, 2014 by Chastain and Associates, which references the location of the proposed pool, rain garden, and other mitigation features, with the condition to have the retaining wall clad with stone. That's it.
We have a second.
I'll second.
Discussion.
Any reason you said you didn't want the stone to match the existing wall?
I feel with the design and thought that's been put through this, they're going to make sure that it's a well thought, and that's, we don't need to specify.
Okay, I would agree.
Any other discussion? We have a motion and a
Can I
second.
get a second? I'm sorry.
Yes, we did.
Jim.
Thank you.
We're good, Counselor? We have a motion to approve V15-002 to allow a pool and pool deck to encroach in the 50-foot stream pond buffer, to allow a pool and pool deck to encroach in the 75-foot impervious setback, per site plan dated 10/1/14, Chastain and Associates, with the following condition: retaining wall clad with stone. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Good luck. That brings us to V15-003. Angela, will you please present?
Let's see, 13350 Providence Lakes Drive, 13430, 13450, 13460 Providence Lakes Drive are the addresses. And I wanted to clarify the requested variance. Originally, it was to allow encroachment into the 50-foot stream buffer for maintenance, and to allow encroachment into the 75-foot impervious setback for maintenance. Then I realized you are already allowed to grade and clear in the 75-foot impervious setbacks, so no variance is required for that.
The
Just for
second
buffer.
part is
Right, that's why I struck the second part.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay. So the site consists of 4 lots in the Providence Lake subdivision, and now it's actually three.
3 lots?
3 lots, known as the West Cove. The lots are zoned the South Cove. We're going to refer to these as the South Cove. The lots are zoned AG1 and are located in the rural Milton overlay. The applicant, Glenn Towater, is the representative for the Providence Lake Property Owners Association. The HOA is planning to drain the lake to a depth of 4.5 feet in order to remove accumulated silt. Sediment removed from the lake will then be disposed of around the margin of the lake. The original plan involved spreading the silt on lots 64 and 65, known as the West Cove, and lots 73, 74, and 75, known as the South Cove. Because of the existing tree cover on the West Cove, the applicant has decided to limit the silt deposition to the lots on the South Cove. And those are lots 73, 74, and 75. Proposed work in the South Cove involves removal of approximately 3,640 cubic yards of sediment over and distributing it over 0.77 acres of disturbed area. Section 426I states that no disturbance or structures are allowed in the 50-foot stream pond buffer. Since the applicant proposes to spread silt in the 50-foot buffer, a variance is required. And as I stated earlier, grading is allowed in the 75-foot impervious setback. On January 6, 2015, the DRB offered the following comments. Explore the option of carting the silt off the property. The board suggests the plan for the, I believe that was South Cove. The affected trees in the 50-foot buffer have already been lost due to the last dredging project. The board does not support the plan for the West Cove. There are trees that would be in jeopardy in this 50-foot buffer area. Find another option for the West Cove. Consider placing the silt in the 75-foot impervious setback area. Clearing and grading is allowed in this area. The HOA needs to come up with a long-term plan for the silt problem so that dredging is not required every 12 to 15 years. Do not disturb any currently vegetated areas. The variance should ask for a minimal amount of disturbance. Additional department comments. Building plan reviews, the architect, the arborist, DOT stormwater, no comments. The site plan review offered the following. No disturbance is allowed in the 25-foot state buffer, other than access to do the maintenance work. The standards for consideration for a stream buffer were read in the previous variance. I can read them again if you like. For now, I'll just go ahead with the response. We plan to place the material onto the adjacent lots where the silt has accumulated because this is the lowest cost approach to dealing with the silt. There are only 95 homes in the subdivision, so it is financially prohibitive to haul the material away to a remote site. Staff response. Staff has concerns about the deposition of silt in areas that would harm existing trees, both in the 50-foot buffer and the 75-foot impervious setback. The tree canopy is a valuable resource, and the city strives to protect it. There are alternatives to the deposition of silt in the stream buffer. A variance should not be approved based on financial considerations. The banks of the lake along lots 73 through 75 will be regraded at a slope of 3 to 1, and the soil will be deposited at the top of the bank. During a site visit with the city arborist, staff determined that the areas where the soil is proposed to be deposited are substantially vegetated with non-specimen trees. There is not enough room in the non-vegetated areas for the amount of material that they propose to deposit. Also, there is evidence of wetlands and possibly a buried stream in this area. Staff is concerned about the long-term health of the lake as well. The HOA has been directed to come up with a long-term solution to the silting problem so that dredging does not have to occur every 12 to 15 years. Recommended conditions. Should the board choose to approve the application, staff recommends the following conditions. Limit the silt spreading to areas where there are no trees. Staff recommendation. Staff recommends denial of the petition to allow disturbance in the 50-foot stream buffer for maintenance. And that concludes the staff presentation.
Did she say approval or denial?
Denial.
Mine says approve.
She sent out a second version of this.
Yes. There's a revised version.
Yeah, because mine says
I revised it after the,
After the approval.
no, that's the, that
That's why I don't print it to the last minute.
we're gonna approve it, now we're gonna deny it, now come on. Yes.
Go ahead.
There's reference from both the DRB and from staff that the Property Owners Association needs to come up with a mitigation plan for the recurrence of this silting issue. What, can staff speak more to what the cause of this is? Is it the topography of all the neighbors, and is it really feasible that they can mitigate this?
Mitigation, I think, will be difficult in that area, with the amount of silt that you're going to be putting in that area. So I think it'll be difficult to really get substantial growth of vegetation in that, where they're planning on placing the fill.
So is the silting issue the result of the surrounding properties around the lake with runoff? What's the source?
What's
of
causing it to occur?
That I'm not aware of. The stream we looked at, that was adjacent to lot 475, appeared to be a clean stream, has a little pond before it gets to the lake. Did not see any evidence of anything building up in that area. The lake looks pretty clean. The adjacent sites, the last time I looked at an aerial photo, very little disturbance on the remaining sites out there at the lake. Most of the, probably 90%, very heavily vegetated up to the lake's edge.
What would happen to that lake if they did not dredged it, if they just let it go? In here 20, 30 years from now?
Now that, Walt could probably help you better with that, long-term effect, or I'm just not qualified to tell you exactly the long-term effect, or how long it would take for, any negative impact from that.
Okay.
I'm aware of Martin's Landing is another lake that's within our North Fulton area. It's in Roswell. That lake has been dredged 3 times in my recent experience. That's from 1990 to the present, 3 times. So every 10 years it's getting dredged. And part of the problem is you have a natural erosion that happens in all creeks and streams. It's something that happens. The problem is this is the top of the lake, and that's where you do get some silt.
Angela or Counselor, do we manage or control the disposal of silt? Can we control where that is placed?
they can put it they can put it anywhere they want to without, a variance. They'd have to get a grading permit, and they'd have to meet erosion control issues, but they're here because they want to put it in a buffer.
Right, but if they didn't want to put it...
Not simply the act of
That's what I'm asking.
putting silt down.
It's
There
not
are
that
restrictions and regulations that may impact how you do it or where you might want to do it, but,
Slopes and
Right,
that sort of
but-
thing.
right.
In essence, we don't control it. You have to agree to certain aspects, but, okay. Thank you.
Any other questions of staff? This time, we'd like to invite the applicant forward to present. And if you'd please state your name and address for the board, we'd certainly appreciate it.
Where's a letter from the applicant?
I think you have these drawings. I'm Susan Salter, and this is Glenn Towater, and we're representing the Homeowners Association. I think you've got all the information. You can't mitigate the arrival of silt in a lake. You can mitigate the damage you do when you place the silt. adjacent to the lake, but the lake is going to silt up over time no matter what you do. It just happens. So our problem is what to do with the silt. So we've given up the West Cove as a place to place the silt because it's heavily wooded, and we will not be placing the silt within the 50-foot buffer there. But we would still like to use these lots where we've placed it in the past before Milton came into existence. And we did it properly with berms and erosion control, and we did lose a few trees, but we turned an area that used to be a swamp, which I guess you might now consider a wetland, but we turned that into a nice lawn area. So we would like to place it in that area again, because
Let's go with the question about the need for a permit. If we abandon the need for a variance and use the impervious area for some 250 cubic yards.
what we're talking about in the West Cove, if we do anything there, it would be beyond the 50-foot buffer. So we don't need a variance for that, right?
Correct.
That's right.
But did we need a permit?
That's, you'd have to address staff on.
I'll have to, Angela knows it a little bit more intimately, but I would expect that, yes, to move that significant amount, it would be a grading permit.
It wouldn't be as significant as it was. I think it would only be 230 cubic yards. Not what it was, so anyway. But we still would like to use the South Cove, the adjacent properties there that we used in the past.
Two plans?
Do you have that drawing?
Yes.
We have that one.
Yeah, we have that one. I don't know what plan you had before.
That was the West Cove before.
I don't think we have that, or I don't have that
Because
picture.
It's not,
considered.
we're not going to use it.
Okay.
So we still would like to use the South Cove. There are a few trees that would be impacted. In this area here, pine trees and not a lot. This area is pretty much unvegetated all through there. So we still would like to use that area. To haul it away, we would have to pay. We would have to place it there temporarily anyway to dry it out. Then we would have to pay to haul it away, and we would have to pay to dump it. So right now, the few contractors that we've tried to speak with have said they don't even know anywhere within a 25-mile radius where we could pay to have it dumped. So this really is the best option. We realize that after this go-round, in the future, it will have to get hauled away. There's not going to be any way we can do this again. So the board, Homeowners Association board is, has a sinking fund to try and put that money aside over the years because it's going to be so much more expensive next time. But we still would like to be able to do this.
How are you going to get it from wherever it's silted to that location?
Mostly where it's silted is that end of that cove, that south cove. That we did in the past construct a silt pond there to try and catch the silt. But then, as you know, I don't know what year it was, a while back we had like a 100-year flood, and it overflowed the silt pond. Also damaged the culvert, and the retaining wall there is falling down, which is City of Milton. I don't know when that's going to ever get done, but it's a mess. But we did do a silt pond there. We've dug it to bedrock. We can't go any deeper. We're trying to catch the silt before it enters the lake. We've done everything we can do.
But how are you removing it from the lake? That's what I'm trying to.
We're lowering the lake and manually, digging it out.
There's other methods, is why I'm mentioning.
Yeah, very expensive.
Really, the vacuum system.
Very expensive.
Really?
There's even a new one where you have, the silt barrier, a fabric like that, and you just, you vacuum it out and you dump it into this bag constructed of that, and then you let it sit till it dries out, and then you break it open and spread it and haul it away. that is something we'll have to think about in the future. But we've gotten quotes for different options, and, you know, this is by
I've dredged
far-
a number of lakes, that's why I've asked. The
Yeah.
one method I used was the pumping and creating those sediment ponds. And you can actually relocate, you know, you can move those around so you can actually build up where you go.
Move what around?
Move the holding area where the silt de-waters, and then you physically.
We don't have, you know,
Okay.
we don't have any land other than
Right.
this. This happened to be a double lot.
Okay.
And the second lot hasn't been built on, and that's where the
Sure.
silt pond is, and so, you know, we're trying to use that. But, yeah, we've looked at that method. It's cost effective if it's a much bigger volume and a bigger lake.
When was the last time that you have done this?
It's been about 12, 13 years
Yeah.
ago.
And was that the first time that that had been done, or
No.
was it done prior to that as well?
First time this method was used. The first time, to our knowledge, when the subdivision was built, the developer dredged the lake after the homes were finished.
Okay.
He used a floating barge method at that time and pumped the material over the dam onto a lot on the north end of the subdivision.
And approximately when was that?
It was in like 2000,
No,
95, somewhere in there.
94, 93,
1995
something like that.
timeframe.
Okay.
That company is out of business now.
No, that's okay. Yeah, no. I'm just trying to understand the,
And that was
Timelines.
placed downstream of the dam, and obviously wouldn't be appropriate now.
Any other questions for the applicant?
I do have one, and I wish Angela was here, and perhaps, Mark, you can address this. So it looks like the method you're proposing, you're going to be crossing the state buffer, and what types of mitigation are you going to do or are in place to mitigate the amount of disturbance as you cross the state buffer?
This is the area here where you would come out of the lake using, I guess, pads to protect the state buffer and then spread the material here. The entranceway to the lake would be here.
Okay, so you're crossing at the top here and then coming down with the material.
Yeah.
See,
And
you
is
gotta
that a
dredge and
vegetated
throw.
area, trees and all that?
This is vegetated in this area here. There are some trees up in this area. This is pretty much open.
There's some sparse
What happens if they don't do this at all?
Just keep on silting up.
Okay, thank you.
About it, he's not being honest. They're dredging and they're throwing it.
By the way, my
They're dredging
house
and
is
throwing
on
it.
this lot.
Then they've got to physically pick it up again.
Pine trees are
That's probably the cheapest way to do
really
it.
close to my house.
That's
I'd
all
like
that
to
camera
do it.
is cheap.
I've done it that way.
95 homeowners, and they're trying to do it as cheap as possible.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? Thank you.
Someone asked the source of the silt going into the lake. This is a stream-fed lake, and that 100-year flood that Susan mentioned comes in from here. That's the source of most of our silt. You asked the question, what happens if we don't dredge it? The lake will fill up.
And that 100-year flood did cause a dam in the watershed to this lake upstream to fail. So probably some of the silt was from that, but the rest was just erosion in the natural area leading up to the lake.
Thank you. This time, we'd like to open the floor to public comment. As there is none, you do have the opportunity to make a closing statement if you would like. Okay. Any questions to staff from the board? Counselor, should we wait for Angela to come back, or should we continue?
Well, that depends if you have questions for Angela.
I don't think we do. Okay. This time, we'd like
I'll keep
to
track.
close the public hearing, and the floor is open for a motion. Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion for approval of V15-003. This is to allow an encroachment into the 50-foot stream buffer for maintenance section 20-426, I, with the following conditions.
Page 5.
That the plan shall follow LCE Engineering's plan called Bartonfield Lakes South Cove, dated 2/18/24, 2/18/14.
Do we have a second?
Second?
Before discussion goes forward, does that, and I'm not familiar with the drawing, does that single out only certain property where the deposition of the sediment is going to occur?
It does. It says Bartonfield Lakes South Cove.
Okay.
So it says lots 13,430, 13,450, and 13,460 Providence Lakes Drive. And I'm not sure it's lakes, it may be Lake Drive.
Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a second. Discussion?
Yep.
Let me just say why I'm doing what I'm doing. I've dredged a number of lakes. I know the problems, and I commend the homeowners for taking time out of your schedule to do something to improve your community over something that really God kind of puts on us with this silt. And I commend you for taking some type of action, hiring an engineer, going out, getting topo surveys, looking at alternatives. It's a head-racking thing, especially for those who are not educated in that area. So I commend you for that. But at the same time, the design they've come up with, they did say there were some areas that they had to remove trees to spread it. That's why I basically based it on the plan they submitted. They don't have a lot of other options of where to put the sediment. Looks like the city's kind of directed them in this way instead of looking at the other cove due to the other issues. And I think you've got something that's just hemmed in, that you've got to put it somewhere. And I understand about hauling it off. Some silt is actually considered hazardous waste, that you've actually go all the way to Alabama to get rid of it. So I know it sounds crazy in our world, but it's something where, you do the best you can to make things work, and that's why I went ahead and made that proposal. I think it's with the homeowner's knowledge in that whole area. I feel it's going to be harmonious. Obviously, HOA is the one in charge of it, so they had to find something that their whole community could buy into.
I had two questions. Should we be encouraging replanting? And what condition, if any, is required through this process for runoff erosion control? Is that part of the normal process, that runoff erosion control would be managed by the city, or is that something that we should consider as a condition?
Right, they'll have to do a land disturbance permit, and they'll be required to do erosion control measures.
Okay, so it's covered there, thank you.
Good question.
And they'll also be required to have a monthly monitoring of all their erosion control based on state law. That's something that, when you are working and you have a development or grading permit, that has to be done.
As far as replanting?
I
Looks like
think
a fairly
you're,
large area that is potentially impacted.
well, my problem is, this may be the same area that gets caught being used again 10 years from now. You come back, you plant, you wind up having to cut it down again. I'm almost the opinion that they're talking about the last time they did this, they left it as a nice little pasture area that they can sit and play in. And I didn't want, if the neighborhood doesn't want it, then why am I forcing it on them? So that's the reason I didn't ask for any more planting. I think this is neighborhood driven. I'm willing to let the neighborhood make their own decision on what they need for their community. And I'm sure it's another cost they're not looking forward to spending anyway, so.
So I would wonder a little bit on the planting, and I'd have to ask, but you taking essentially fresh silt out of the pond, putting it onto land, how conducive will that be to new plantings?
You'll grow the best tomatoes in town. You'll have the best soil.
Usually pretty rich soil.
Yeah, you'll have, you could grow watermelon, and that's not something you can do easily in this area. So,
I was more questioning that, not so much by what potential impact may be done from this project, but longer term mitigating erosion control.
yeah, I think
So
they're
does
gonna.
it just end up growing back as wild?
Grass or whatever. I mean, they're gonna have to, by law, they've got to get 70% stabilization by Georgia law that the staff has to do. In fact, our staff is really some of the best erosion control staff in all of Fulton County. They got the highest score in the state for doing their monitoring and doing the observations. So
Any other discussion?
they're very good. We've got a very qualified staff to.
All right, we got a motion and a second to approve V15-003 to allow encroachment in the 50-foot stream buffer for maintenance, section 20-426, I, per plat of the LCE engineering plan for the Bartonfield Lake South Cove dated 2/18/2014. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. It passed unanimously. Good luck.
Thank you for helping the community.
That brings us to V15-004. Angela, will you please present?
This site is located at 5120 Forest Circle, and it is an undeveloped lot in the Groveland Birmingham Highway subdivision. The 1.017 acre lot is zoned AG1 and is located in the rural Milton overlay. The applicant, Joe Ingram, is the representative for Ashton Woods Atlanta LLC. Ashton Woods proposes to build a single-family home with a detached garage on the lot. The house will be at least 55 feet in width. The applicant feels that this type of house is necessary in order to conform to the architectural theme of the surrounding community. As proposed, the house will not fit on the lot with the existing setbacks. Section 64-416D states that the rear setback for an AG1 lot is 50 feet. Since the applicant is proposing to reduce the rear setback by 15 feet, leaving a 35-foot rear setback, a variance is required. On February 3rd, 2015, the DRB offered the following comments. Staff's suggestion to the developer was to go before the City Council for a CUP. The board recommends that the developer should follow staff's recommendation. The design of the houses on all lots shall be approved by the city architect. Additional department comments from a staff focus meeting held on February 4th are as follows. Building plan review, site plan review, arborist, and DOT stormwater at no comments. The city architect. Because this is one of 4 variances for this subdivision, staff recommended that the applicant apply for a CUP. This will allow more flexibility for house placement on all of the lots. If approved, the houses should be subject to architectural review. Standards for consideration were read earlier, and the applicant responds as follows. The rear yard of Lot 21 adjoins a stormwater detention pond. Thus, the approval of the requested variance will not locate any structures at a distance from another residential structure that would offend the zoning ordinance's intent, providing adequate building separation between such structures. The size, shape, topography of the subject property and the resulting setbacks along the boundary lines substantially limit the buildable area of the subject property and necessitate placement of the structures in the location proposed by the applicant. Also, the location of the primary and secondary septic areas prevent the location of the proposed structure, except as proposed by the applicant. Unless the variance is approved as requested, the home and detached garage may not be constructed in a manner in keeping with architectural standards of the surrounding area. The requested variance is the minimum necessary to accommodate the proposed structures and allow the property to be developed in an economically feasible and physically practical manner. The applicant will provide adequate protection to adjoining properties by providing structures that are in keeping with the aesthetics of the surrounding community. Approval of the proposed variance would not create a safety hazard or noxious condition. Staff response. Relief, if granted, would not offend the spirit or intent of the ordinance, as the house would be pushed back towards the detention pond. The applicant has other options for construction that would not require a variance. There is nothing about this lot that makes it unbuildable. Relief, if granted, would not cause a substantial detriment to the public good and surrounding properties, as the house would not be closer than normal to its neighbor. Relief, if granted, would not harm public health, safety, or welfare. However, there are other options for houses that can be constructed on the lot without variances, thereby preserving substantial justice for the applicant. Recommended conditions. Should the board choose to approve the application, staff recommends the following conditions. The final design of the house shall be approved by the city architect. The house should be designed with 360-degree architecture. Staff recommendation. Staff recommends approval with conditions of the requested variance.
Thank you. Any questions?
Sorry.
Can I at least finish?
I have copies of the plat of the entire subdivision.
That's what I was looking for.
Thank you very much, Angela. What is wrong with you?
We do it, that's routine.
We've been here before.
And the individual lots are in your
We're going to have a little lecture here.
Mr. Chairman, the floor is yours.
They're not treating me very nice. Counselor, we have problems up here.
Just with you.
You're best off not just to let it go, Counselor. Angela, can I ask a couple questions?
Should you wait till she sits down?
I'm sorry, I'm being told to wait. I'm jumping the gun.
Let at least have a seat. Are there any questions from the board to the staff members?
May I ask a couple?
Yes, sir, go right ahead.
Thank you. This applicant obviously has, it looks like, 4 different cases in front of us this evening. A couple questions. I am assuming the applicant bought these properties in the condition that they currently exist, i.e. nothing was there.
Well, Ashton Woods is developing the property, so they've had it from scratch.
Since they purchased the property, have our zoning rules or guidelines changed at all?
No, the guidelines didn't, well, the only thing that changed was the rule of U-ship, but
That would affect.
talk about that on another variance.
That would affect them.
Right,
And
it wouldn't affect this particular lot.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other questions?
What is 360-degree architecture? What does that really mean?
I have the same
We
question.
don't want, staff prefers not to have, any blank walls. We want all 4 sides of the house to have as much character as the front. So, each facade would need some kind of window or door or something.
Okay.
That's unbelievable.
Character meaning some sort of
We just don't want
Aesthetic.
blank
As
wall.
far as
You
blank
don't have the right one.
brick.
I know, I'm marking them all down,
I've not heard that term before.
because I'm trying to see if one impacts the other.
Any other questions?
Do any of these impact another? In other words, are they all real close to each other? I'm trying to see 2 are on, looks like they're all, 2 are on the same street, but the other 2 are not.
This is
Forest Circle, Orchard Way, and Thicket Court.
21's kind of there by itself.
21, 23, 20, 21, 23, 24, and 39.
Okay.
Counselor, because the applicant is the same on all 4, the variance requests vary from one to the other, but essentially it's the same case in large parts, to a large extent.
Well, they are individual requests.
They need to be treated as such?
They should be treated as such.
Okay.
I mean, you can factor into, the surrounding
Sure.
results,
I
but each should stand on its own merits. It's not an all or nothing.
Understood. Thank you, sir.
Tonight's your night? If you don't mind.
I have a question for staff.
Yes, sir.
It was mentioned in the staff report that it was suggested that this go through the CUP process. I guess, is that something with it that, can you explain that?
I know those of you that have been here since the beginning remember Blue Valley, when they came in and kind of got a variance on each and every lot.
Yep.
After that, we did a amendment to the ordinance where you can only have 10% of all the lots. You can only have a variance from 10% of all the lots, or I believe it's 5, whichever is greatest. So basically, they have one more variance for the entire subdivision. And that's, they pour a foundation wrong, somebody comes in 20 years from now, wants a pool, one more variance, and they have to go before the council. And they have to ask for a community unit plan, a CUP. So staff suggested that they do that now to give themselves not only these 4 lots, but that gives them more flexibility on all the lots if they want it.
How many lots are there in total? That are
39 in the entire subdivision. That's where you're right now.
So if we have 2 homeowners that come in 5 years, that would trigger,
Oh, not home, they'd be different from him.
that's not what they're saying. That's not what she just said.
If the homeowners came, Angela, wouldn't that be a whole different thing?
That's not how it's written.
This affects homeowners, future homeowners.
All right, let's change the law.
Yeah, because that's not right.
I
I
agree.
Yeah,
They're binding the hands of future homeowners.
yeah, that's not right. No, that'd be a different variance from a different person. Different applicant, in my opinion. Of course, I'm not an attorney.
We have one here.
We have 2? We have 2 here. Do you understand? Do you know this? Do you know the
The more likely scenario, guys, is that with the way that these properties are oriented, the builder himself is going to come back for other variance requests, and that's going to be
Right.
a problem in itself.
We'll ask them that question, if they want to do it here, or they want to go in front of the city council. I got a feeling they want to do it here, they wouldn't be here.
I mean, you got streams that run through here.
I'm sure they've already been told to go to city council, so, let's see.
Let me mention one more thing.
Hang on, just let them do this for
No,
you.
I need to do something before they can say anything.
Oh.
I just want to make sure everyone knows, I have done business with Lipscomb, Johnson, Slister, Daly, and Smith. I have not personally hired them for any of my business, but I have worked with them on other projects. I don't feel it's a conflict of interest, but I do want to make sure that
Thank you.
I put that in the record, so
We accept that.
before anyone speaks.
Okay. We got it. Put your phone down, please, we're reading.
I'm checking email. We're waiting.
Do you guys see the shape of these lots?
Yes.
Yeah.
No wonder they're asking for variance.
Yeah, it's
just weird.
It is.
I get it.
Yeah, it's, I get
Well, let's
it
hear
too.
from the applicant.
Well, we're waiting, Mr. Churnick,
That one and this one, the 3 of them.
for them to answer the question. Angela's to answer the question.
What did you get?
Must only be because
That's
it's
what
gonna be
it's
so
zoned?
cold.
No, it's our zoning case,
Somebody said it's gonna get down to 19.
so
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying.
should really be a V. That's what I was doing, I was going through all the sheets just to
So
make
rear
sure.
setback.
See, like this is 07.
Yeah, I see. So rear
This is
setback is there.
05, this is 05.
This is the rear setback right here.
Right. So I want to make it 35 feet.
From the storm pond?
Reduce the rear setback 50 foot to 35.
We've had some discussions, and I'm not going to change anything, but just to let you know what we've been discussing. And but just at this point in time, it appears you have a variance in front of you that you may consider on its merits individually. The discussion of the CUP option is just kind of a something that the staff recognized that there might be, an option that would provide more flexibility in an overall scheme. It's not a requirement for this board. You should look at whether the variance that's presented to you meets the criteria that are set out in the zoning ordinance.
But can I ask a clarifying question, Counselor, if I may?
Yes.
Based on what Angela had shared with us, if this applicant or any applicant comes in front of us for additional times, that would equal 5, would that tie future homeowners who are separate than these, their hands?
And that is what we've been discussing. And this issue has not been presented, and I would need to find out more about how, and it's likely to be an interpretation of the particular section of the ordinance at the time someone might come in. I don't know that the language that's presented in the ordinance is necessarily consistent with that with that at this time, but I haven't looked into what the past application of the provision is. So I can't actually tell you that the next person that comes in would be required to go through the Board of Commissioners rather than this board.
I can put the cart before the horse, if I may. Are we doing ourselves, the city, and ultimately the applicant in front of us a favor by deferring this until we get that answer?
Well, I guess I'm comfortable with you going forward with this application.
I'm in agreement because
I am too.
we just need to go ahead and get it heard, and if we need to get an interpretation for the next one, then that's what we do.
But my
Well, we can
concern,
ask the applicant too what he would like us to do. He's heard all this, and if he wants to
Sure.
go. So I think that's where we should go next.
I want to finish this conversation. We'll come back once we get a motion, but I have
Okay.
some concerns.
Any other questions to staff? At this time, we'd like to invite the applicant forward to present. If you'd state your name and address for the board, we'd certainly appreciate it.
Good evening. My name is Joe Ingram. I'm with Ashton Woods Homes. We do business at 3820 Mansell Road, Alpharetta, Georgia, 30022. What I'd primarily like to do is give you guys just kind of a brief history of the site as to what has me in front of you guys this evening. When we purchased the site, well, the question was actually asked earlier whether anything has really changed within the city of Milton since we bought it. Well, no, not outside of the rural viewshed ordinance. This lot isn't necessarily impacted by that. However, the need for this variance stems directly from what was asked of us during our when we were getting our land disturbance permit. When we originally filed for our land disturbance permit, we showed no future right-of-way to connect to adjacent parcels of land. And what ultimately was asked of us by Sarah leaders was to provide connectivity to Tullamore, which is the adjacent neighborhood. That's just this small portion of land right there. We worked with Sarah. We had developed a plan to connect to that right-of-way. Ultimately, I guess Tullamore reached out to city staff and just said, hey, we really don't want this. Even though there's deeded right-of-way here, we'd ask you not to ask them to connect. What came of that was asking us to connect to the parcel of land to the north of the property. You'll see the right-of-way, or actually what is deeded right-of-way on the northern portion of the site right there. And when we did that really took a large square footage out of our home sites. I kind of heard the remarks about the funky shaped lots up in that cul-de-sac. That's all because we had to really shift that whole cul-de-sac down to try to maintain the density that we ultimately thought we were going to get. And the lot 21 specifically, the pond pushed down because you got to maintain the pond volume. So that's history of kind of what we believe is the hardship, which brings me here this evening.
Any questions from the board to the applicant? Yes, sir.
So basically, this is a situation where lot 23 and 21 are being affected by the condition you just mentioned.
It's actually 21, 23, and 24, three of them.
Okay. So, but
So if-
24, you're
if
not
that-
asking for a variance on, right?
Yes, they are. It's V15-006.
Okay. So there's three of them that are impacted by this condition. The staff asked.
So if that request was not made by the city to essentially tie into the other subdivision, this variance would not be in front of us?
Correct.
Was this property not originally developed by Providence Group?
No. This was raw land that we purchased from a man named Tom Martin.
Okay.
And you've heard all of us talk about the CUP through the city council. Have you guys given any thought to that at all?
I guess short answer is yes, simply because we heard that from the design review board. My immediate reaction would just be that it's time for us. You know, we've.
I would personally rather do it here, but I just wanted to make sure that
Yes,
you're aware that you have another option.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
And when was this condition put in front of you? As far as changing it, was it after the project got started or when?
No, it was when we filed for our land disturbance permit. It was in a second round of comments, actually.
So it's fairly early in the process.
But after the
Fairly.
purchase had already occurred?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Todd. No, I'll ask.
Do you understand the implications of taking this piecemeal, what I'll call one-off approach versus a CUP, and that this could constrain you with a number of other unique site situations?
Yep, we do. What I'd say is we've fully vetted the site at this point. We know what stream buffers exist. We've done our level 3 soils analysis for septic. We know what we're up against, and I don't think we would come to you with these 4 variances if we truly felt we were going to be coming to you guys in the future. And that's why we brought them all 4 together, honestly, instead of trying to get them one by one as we move through the process.
I mean, I'm just trying to look out for your best interest. I look at lot 12, which is very funky with lot 11. You got impervious restrictions on 6, 7, 8, 9. Anyone that wants to come back here for
More than one.
a patio, a fire pit, a pool, you guys have a common area with a pool?
Not outside of ponds.
So, I mean, you may be limiting your product.
And I guess
by
what I would
the fact
offer
that
up.
Future homeowners are going to be restricted potentially based on what we have heard.
And again, I guess what I would offer up is we've already done our lot fit analysis based on product that we offer. As far as what someone may choose to do in the future, I don't know.
I just want to be clear. There's not a restriction on the number of variances that can be issued in a subdivision. What we're talking about at worst is whether it goes to the board or to the city council or to this board. At worst.
That's not what I heard earlier. I thought it was a 10% of the
Right.
lots.
That is the language that would trigger it going to the council instead of to this board.
Right. But,
And I apologize, that may not have
All
been
right, that's
clear
not what I
from.
heard. Sorry, thank you for clarifying.
Right, I thought it sounded like.
That answers a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions to the applicant? Thank you, sir. Any public comment? As there is none, you do have the right to make a closing statement. Any questions to staff from the board?
May I?
Yes.
Angela, can you help us understand why we requested the tie-in to Tullamore? Why are we putting that, are we creating this hardship ourselves?
The city is trying to maximize interconnectivity of the developments, as much as possible. It's safer for the subdivisions to have more than one entrance, and it takes a little pressure off the main roads. Staff looked at it like this was just one more thing that the developer had to consider in the process of developing the property. There's no guaranteed density. We can't guarantee the density of the subdivision. I know they have financial considerations and they need a certain number of lots to make it work and all that, but that's kind of not our purview. We know it's not just a matter we'll lose a lot,
But I would venture to, I'm sorry. I would venture to guess that when the applicant bought it, they obviously had.
They had a certain number of lots.
They had a certain number, and
They're trying to make
I think
it
39, and that would probably present it to the city saying, this is our goal. So we've created this.
Yes.
I don't think we've necessarily created it. I mean, it's just one of the
we created it.
One of the criteria they had to deal with. I mean, the right-of-way was going to be required either way, would be at Tullamore or to the north.
Thank you.
At this time, we'd like to close the public hearing. The floor is open for a motion. Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion for approval of V 15-004. This is to reduce the rear setback from 50 feet to 35 feet based on section 64-416, D, with the following conditions. The final design of the house shall be approved by the city architect. And 2, the house shall be designed with 360-degree architecture, whatever that means.
Is that part of it?
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Tell you what, before going forward, you've made the motion. I need you to know what that means to you. And if you don't know, then we need to spell it out.
Okay. Don't know what it means.
If it was,
I heard what you're saying was that they had to do it with windows and no blank walls and all this, but, I doubt, anyway, I think it's a nice term, but I think
I have a suggestion. Let's go ahead and just put.
Mr. Rico,
Yeah.
I believe if you'll express it as staff has explained and is a term of art that staff is comfortable with, that you understand based on their descriptions, we can go forward with that term.
Okay. This 360-degree architecture is a term that the staff uses. They understand what it means. Therefore, they are the ones who will have to interpret the eventual.
And it's as you understand presented this evening.
And I understand to some degree. I don't understand it for every iota, but I mean, I understand it's a staff recommendation.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Discussion.
Here's my suggestion, that we have ultimately 4 cases from this applicant. I know we're only discussing one right now. I'm going to imagine all 3 of the others will include approval by the city architect's 360-degree architecture. I would suggest removing those 2 considerations, and that we simply approve it without any conditions. And that,
That'd be
because
fine with me.
the applicant clearly is going to build a product that is conducive to the neighborhood, that meets the appropriate aesthetics. I am going to make an assumption that they financially know what's going to work, and they're not going to do something stupid. So I don't see
agree.
why on 4 lots we put these contingencies when the other 35 don't exist.
Why don't you remove your motion?
My 2 cents.
Can I restate my motion, or how is it best to?
Withdraw.
If you'd like to either We can either go through the process of amending the main motion or withdrawing the motion and restating it.
I'll just withdraw the motion. I
Withdraw your
request that the
second.
motion be withdrawn.
Jim actually seconded.
Okay, withdraw your second.
I'll withdraw the second.
Now make another motion, please.
I'll make a motion for approval of
V50.
V15-004. This is to reduce the rear setback from 50 feet to 35 feet based on section 64-416, comma D. No other conditions.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion. We have a motion to approve V15-004 to reduce the rear setback from 50 feet to 35 feet, section 64-416, comma D. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign.
I'm in favor, sorry.
Yes, we're on.
It passed unanimously. That brings us to V15-005. Angela, will you please? Angela, will you please present?
Yes, sir. The site, 4950 Forest Circle, is a 1.005 acre lot in the Grove and Birmingham Highway subdivision. It is zoned AG1 and is in the rural Milton overlay, and it's also undeveloped. The applicant, Joe Ingram, is the representative for Ashton Woods Atlanta LLC. Ashton Woods proposes to build a single-family home with a detached garage on the lot. The house will be at least 55 feet in width. The applicant feels that this type of house is necessary in order to conform to the architectural theme of the surrounding community. As proposed, the house will not fit on the lot with the existing setbacks. Section 64-416C1 states that the side yard interior setback is 25 feet. Since the applicant is proposing to reduce the setback by 15 feet, leaving a 10-foot side setback, a variance is required. On February 3rd, 2015, the DRB offered the following comments. Staff's suggestion to the developer was to go before the City Council for a CUP. The board recommends that the developer should follow staff's recommendation. Design of the houses on all lots should be approved by the city architect. Staff held a focus meeting on February 4th, 2015, at which the following comments were provided. Building plan review, site plan review, the arborist and DOT stormwater had no comments per the architect. Because this is one of the 4 variances for this subdivision, staff recommended that the applicant apply for a CUP. This will allow more flexibility for house placements on all of the lots. The houses should be subject to architectural review. The standards for consideration were read earlier, and the applicant responds as follows. The eastern side yard of Lot 23 adjoins a tract reserved to provide future interparcel connection to the northern property adjoining the subdivision. Approval of the requested variance will not locate any structures on Lot 23 at a distance from another residential or agricultural structure that would offend the zoning ordinance's intent of providing adequate building separation between such structures. The size, shape, and topography of the subject property and the rezoning setbacks along the boundary line substantially limit the buildable area of the subject property and necessitate placement of the structures in the locations proposed by the applicant. In addition, the location of primary and secondary septic areas prevent the location of the proposed structures except as proposed by the applicant. Unless the variance is approved as requested, the home and detached garage may not be constructed in a manner in keeping with architectural standards of the surrounding area. The requested variance is the minimum necessary to accommodate the proposed structures and allow the property to be developed in an economically feasible and physically practical manner. The applicant will provide adequate protection to adjoining properties by providing structures that are in keeping with the aesthetics of the surrounding community. Approval of the proposed variances would not create a safety hazard or noxious condition. Staff response. The right side yard of Lot 23 adjoins the proposed right-of-way. Since there are no houses adjacent to this property line, relief, if granted, would not offend the spirit or intent of the ordinance. There is nothing about the lot that makes it unbuildable. Approval of the requested variance allows the applicant to build a house with a detached garage. As proposed, the house would be 10 feet from the new right-of-way. While the public will not be harmed, this may infringe on the safety and privacy of the owners of the house on Lot 23. Approval of the requested variance will not harm the public's safety, health, and welfare. However, there are other options for houses that have been constructed on the lots without variances, thereby preserving the substantial justice for the applicant. Recommended conditions. Should the board choose to approve the application, staff recommends the following conditions. The house should be designed with 360-degree architecture. The porch should be a minimum of 8 feet in depth. The final design of the house should be approved by the city architect. Staff recommends approval with conditions of the approved variance. Staff presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions to staff from the board?
Just one, if I may. Angela, I just want to confirm, lot 23 that was mentioned, that it could be a little close to that lot, that's currently vacant. There is no house on that.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Attorney?
I just need clarification on lot 23, when we say the right side setback, that's the setback that is adjacent to the future right-of-way?
Yes.
And then can you please clarify and explain the intent of that future right-of-way again for my benefit?
That is the right-of-way that was required by staff to, I'm not sure what, I think the property to the north of there is currently undeveloped, so that road will one day connect to whatever is developed on that northern property.
And then my last question is, I noticed this property has a 40-foot setback from the cul-de-sac. Why does that differ from other lots which seem to be more consistently at a 60-foot setback?
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
It looks that this lot has a 40-foot setback from the street, whereas it seems like most other lots in here would have a 60-foot setback from the street.
That front setback should be 60 feet.
Is it perhaps amended because it's a corner lot?
It's just mislabeled, it scales out to 60 feet.
Yeah, it may just be mislabeled. Looking at the plat, it still scales out. If you look at the plat, you get a better idea of the lot.
So it actually is
may
60
just be
feet setback?
It's mislabeled, it's 60 feet.
Okay. Thank you.
At this time, we'd like to invite the applicant forward to present.
Again, Joe Ingram, Ashton Woods Homes, 3820 Mansell Road, Alpharetta, Georgia, 30022. This home site was impacted in the same manner that we discussed earlier. Can't give you much more information than that, and I guess I'm here to answer whatever questions you guys may have.
Questions?
So, just to clarify, to the north, there isn't anything there right now?
It's church
So it is a
property.
church.
What I can tell you is that we looked into purchasing that property along with the tracts of land that we bought here. The property doesn't lend itself well to development. That's not to say it'll never get developed, but to access it, it requires a fairly expensive creek crossing to get there, which for the number of lots it would provide just didn't make financial sense to us.
So there is a church there right now?
Up here, yes,
okay.
yes.
So that road or that right-of-way connects to
The right-of-way ends at our property line.
this end? There's nothing else. There's this land, and then there's the
There's right-of-way that ends boundary right here that connects to
And then after that, that's where the church is.
Yes.
So it looks like you have a fairly reasonable footprint to build a house there, based on the original plat, which does not, I don't believe reflects the 10-foot variance that you're, or 15-foot variance to a 10-foot setback. Is that correct?
I'm not 100% sure what you guys are looking at, but
I'm looking at the plat from Rochester and Associates for Lot 23. I guess, what's the hardship and the rationale why you feel that this side setback should be reduced to 10 feet?
just given, I mean, I guess the hardship for us was, you know, originally we're talking about a little bit of right-of-way in this area right here. Now, everything is shifted to the north, took a much larger chunk out of the property than was originally anticipated. And to answer your question, yes, we could build a house on that lot. Our thinking is more that for the 1 acre lots that we've got in this subdivision, and just from a scale standpoint, and from what we've heard from the Milton buyer, is that detached garages are important to them, and it's something they want. So it's something we'd like to offer on all the home sites for this neighborhood.
Are there sidewalks proposed in this neighborhood?
Yes.
So should a future right-of-way be carried down there, I would imagine would include sidewalks as well?
I'm not 100% sure.
I mean, if you had something, if you want a consistent problem. What I'm getting at is we're potentially looking at a very narrow side yard should right-of-way be put in, and we've run into issues with that in the past.
Well, the sidewalk would be within the right-of-way still.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Okay.
Any other questions to the applicant?
Would like to add one thing, that there will be a disclosure, and I don't know if it means anything to you guys. We disclose that at the time of a purchase on lot 23, that right-of-way does in fact exist, and the buyer's made aware of it.
Okay, thank you. That does
Thank you.
help mitigate.
Any public comment? Sir, you do have the opportunity to. Any questions to staff from the board?
I do have one question.
Yes, sir.
Counselor, is there an appropriate way that we can condition this disclosure to the applicant to make it something that is legally binding in the sense of, it's, you know,
You can
with
set a
the deed?
requirement that the existence of the right of way be disclosed on any sale.
In what manner? You know, how do you make it so that you can have evidence that it's been disclosed?
Well,
Does that have to be recorded in the deed?
it doesn't necessarily have to be on the deed. I mean, it would behoove them to have a signed disclosure, which was such that they would present a writing, which is then signed by the purchaser.
But just so you know, that was done in a case I was working on, and the city still didn't recognize it. So they still went ahead and turned down a road to access it, because I had two property owners show that they signed a statement like that. And the homeowner still objected to that road ever getting extended.
Sure.
And the city sided with those two homeowners.
There's nothing, because
So there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can get all the letters you want signed, that doesn't mean it's gonna happen.
Right. Yeah, it's not.
That's all I'm trying to
putting
state.
in.
It would also be on, if the homeowners did a survey, it would be on that survey.
It's on the survey.
That's if they did that. A lot of times homeowners don't get surveys.
Any other questions to staff?
Not that they should.
This time, we'd like to close the public hearing, and the floor is open for a motion. Yes, go ahead.
Go ahead, Chris.
Sure, I'm going to make this nice and simple. So I would like to approve
V15-005 to reduce the side setback from 25 to 10 feet, referencing section 64-416C1.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I feel that we need to, at a minimum, make it clear that this is disclosed.
My feeling again is you can get a letter all you want, still take it to the council. Council still look around saying, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 36 votes. Never mind, we'll never extend that road, even though they're aware of
You're
it.
trying to protect the homeowner just on potential.
Who's buying that this could happen?
But there's nobody in there. So when they buy that piece of property, they will know that.
Right.
It would be different if there are already homes in there, but they will know that the minute they go look at that piece of property. They will know that.
But I think Ashton Wood protects themselves legally
Oh, absolutely.
by requiring that so that it doesn't
Yeah.
come back to haunt them, somebody
Yeah.
gets sued.
I don't think that's anything we need to put in there. They're going to put it in. We have a motion and a second to approve V15-005 to reduce the right side setback from 25 to 10 feet, referencing section 64-416, comma C, comma 1. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same say. Okay, got passed 6-1, 5-1. That brings us to V15-006. Angela, will you please present?
I have a couple more copies. Did anyone need more?
No,
I think we're good.
I don't have 7 or 8. I don't have
have
7.
7.
Okay. I got 6.
Okay.
I see what they did.
The site, 2005 Hoppus Court, is a 1.063 acre lot in the Grove on Birmingham Highway subdivision. It is zoned AG1 and is in the Rural Milton overlay. The applicant, Joe Ingram, is the representative for Ashton Woods Atlanta LLC. Ashton Woods proposes to build a single-family home with a detached garage on the lot. The house will be at least 55 feet in width. The applicant feels that this type of house is necessary in order to conform to the architectural theme of the surrounding community. As proposed, the house will not fit on the lot with the existing setbacks. Section 64-416C2 states that a side yard adjacent to the street is 40 feet. Since the applicant is proposing to reduce the setback by 10 feet, leaving a 30-foot side setback, a variance is required. Section 64-416C1 states that the side yard interior setback is 25 feet. Since the applicant is proposing to reduce the setback by 5 feet, leaving a 20-foot side setback, a variance is required. On February 3rd, 2015, the DRB offered the following comments. Staff's suggestion to the developer was to go before the City Council for a CUP. The board recommends that the developer should follow the staff's recommendation. Design of the houses on all lots should be approved by the city architect. Additional department comments, building plan review, site plan review, the arborist and DOT had no comments. The architect stated, because this is one of the 4 variances for this subdivision, staff recommended that the applicant apply for a CUP. This will allow more flexibility for house placement on all of the lots. The houses should be subject to architectural review. Standards for consideration were read earlier, and the applicant responds as follows. With regards to the southern boundary, we will not locate any structures on Lot 24 at a distance from another residential structure that would offend the zoning ordinance's intent of providing adequate building separation between adjacent structures. The applicant will maintain at least 50 feet of separation between the proposed structures on Lot 24 and the adjacent structures on Lot 25. With regard to the northern boundary, Approval of the requested variance will not offend the ordinance's intent of providing adequate separation between structures and adjacent right-of-way. The applicant will maintain the proposed structures at a safe distance between the from the right-of-way of Forest Circle. The size, shape, and topography of the subject property and the resulting setbacks along the boundary lines substantially limit the buildable area of the subject property and necessitate placement of the structures in the locations proposed by the applicant. In addition, the location of primary and secondary septic areas prevent the location of the proposed structures except as proposed by the applicant. Unless the variance is approved as requested, the home and detached garage may not be constructed in a manner in keeping with architectural standards of the surrounding area. The requested variance is the minimum necessary to accommodate the proposed structures and allow the property to be developed in an economically feasible and physically practical manner. The applicant will provide adequate protection to adjoining properties by providing structures that are in keeping with the aesthetics of the surrounding community. Approval of the proposed variances would not create a safety hazard or noxious condition. Staff response. The side corner of Lot 24 adjoins the right-of-way of Forest Circle. Moving the house 10 feet closer to the road would not offend the spirit or intent of the ordinance. If 50 feet is maintained between the houses on lots 23 and 24, the reduction in the interior side yard setback would not offend either. There is nothing about the lot that makes it unbuildable. It appears that the applicant can build their preferred house without any variances if they deleted the breezeway between the house and the garage. Approval of the requested variance would not cause a substantial detriment to the public good and surrounding properties, as the house would be pushed closer to the right-of-way and not a neighboring house. Approval of the requested variance will not harm the public safety, health, and welfare. However, there are other options that will allow a house to be built on the lot without variances, thereby preserving substantial justice for the applicant. Recommended conditions. Should the board choose to approve the application, staff recommends the following conditions. The house should be designed with 360-degree architecture, including an 8-foot deep wraparound porch facing Forest Circle and Coppice Court. The final design of the house should be approved by the city architect. Maintain a minimum of 50 feet between houses on lots 24 and 25. Staff recommends approval with conditions of the proposed variance. This concludes the staff presentation.
Thank you. Questions to the staff from the board members? Yes, sir.
On the agenda, this is noted as B15-006, is 2005 Orchard Way.
It's a corner lot, so it can be, actually, let's see, which one is this?
But isn't it on the corner of Forest and Coppice?
24, let me find it on the plat. It's Forest and Coppice. So yeah, corner lot basically has two addresses. It just depends on where the mailbox is placed.
But Orchard Way isn't one of those two streets.
Right. So it's supposed to be Coppice Court.
It's like on the petition. That's right on.
Is it right on the petition?
It's right here, yes.
Okay, good.
It's wrong
correct
on
the
the
petition.
Wrong on the agenda.
All right, great. My second question was, is the entrance to the driveway in this property intended to be off Coppice or off Forest?
You can look at the site plan in the back of your packet there. So it looks like it's supposed to come off of, so it's labeled wrong here. It's supposed to be Coppice. They've got it labeled as Orchard Way.
Coppice.
Yeah, that's it.
Is there anything preventing them from having the entrance off of Forest driveway?
No, they can do that.
Okay. Those are my two questions.
Any other questions? This time, we'd like to invite the applicant forward to please present.
Oh, actually, before, if they do orient it off of Forest, would that require the rear between lots 24 and 25 to be greater than 25 foot? In other words, what would be considered the rear if they located the driveway off of Forest?
Based on the shortest width of the front yard. In other words, whichever.
The front is going to be the shortest of your sides, and so the rear would be parallel to that front.
The orientation of the house won't affect
It has
the
nothing to do with it.
Yeah, my name is Joe Ingram. I'm with Ashton Woods Homes. We do business at 3820 Mansell Road, Alpharetta, Georgia, 30022. Again, this lot was really constrained due to the realignment of a forest circle to provide the potential connectivity to the property to the north. I think as far as the intent in regards to the side setback between our lot 24 and 25, I think we can accommodate that 50 feet all day long. Don't see that being a problem. I guess my question, or the question in my mind, is with the requirement for a wraparound porch. I mean, we're asking for a variance to the lot width as it stands today, and then adding a wraparound porch to the side of the house would further constrain us there. So with that, I'm here to answer any questions you guys may have.
Questions? Yes, sir. Either one of you.
I have two. One question is there anything preventing you from changing the orientation of that house so that it enters off of Forest Circle and fitting that product on that lot?
I think it's more of a streetscape for us as you drive through the community. Having the rear of what would be Lot 24 face the side yard of Lot 25 would, to me, would feel a little funky.
Okay. And what about, you mentioned that this lot was impacted because of the requirement for the right-of-way. Was there never going to be a road that goes back to access lots 21, 22, and 23?
That whole cul-de-sac pushed down up here. And when it pushed down, it realigned this portion of the street right here.
That took Forest Circle in its entirety and shifted it down?
Not necessarily in its entirety. I mean, I didn't actually draw the plan, but it's from discussions with our engineer, it pushed this portion of Forest south. Because we had to pick up the square footage lost to the right-of-way to maintain 1 acre lots, basically.
Okay, and my last question is, it may seem like a small request to go from 25 to 20 feet on a side yard setback, but as you heard today, that can be significant. The entrance to lot 25 driveway, how is that going to be oriented in relation to lot 24? We see the driveway on lot 24 is proposed to be on that side lot line.
A left-handed, correct.
Yeah. What about lot 25, which sits below?
Lot 25, again, is a left-hand entry, and just...
Left-hand entry, so that would mean that the house would be next to the driveway and garage.
Face Coppice Court.
On lot 24.
Correct.
So that's the
What I
high
would
side.
point out, though, is just due to soils on the site, lot 25 is clear up against the south side setback of that home site. So you're going to have 100 feet probably between those houses.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Just one or two, if I may. Staff's suggestion that if you eliminated the breezeway, you would fit into the lot without requesting a variance. Out of the 39 parcels that you have planned right now, how many of them don't have a breezeway?
None. These are the only 4 that will not necessarily accommodate it. Did that answer your question?
It does not. you have 39 lots, am I correct?
Correct.
Okay. Does every lot plan currently have a detached garage with a breezeway associated with it?
That is the plan, yes.
Okay. That's all.
Thank you. Do you have another question?
You made a comment that having the orientation of the house coming off of Forest, which would have the rear yard essentially impacting the side yard of Lot 25, and yet you also said later on that Lot 25 was going to probably be 100 feet away.
Mm-hmm.
So could you fit your product if you changed the orientation off of Forest Circle?
I believe so. Standing here tonight, I'm not 100% sure where the primary and secondary septic fields are. That would be my only caveat to that.
Okay.
It's a good caveat.
Any other questions?
Yeah, it's a very good.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any public comment? Any questions to staff?
I just did want to add one thing. A porch can encroach into the front setback by 10 feet, so he's got a little wiggle room there. So
Can it
that
encroach
shouldn't add any, extra constraints.
in the front, but can it encroach into the side as well?
It cannot encroach into the side, the front or the rear.
Any questions to staff? This time, we'd like to close the public hearing. The floor is open for a motion.
I have a motion.
Yes, sir.
My motion is to approve petition number V15-006 with the following two variances: to reduce the side corner setback from 40 feet to 30 feet, and to reduce the side setback from 25 feet to 20 feet with the following conditions. The house shall be designed with 360-degree architecture, including an 8-foot deep wraparound porch facing Forest Circle and Coppice Court. Final design of the house shall be approved by the city architect and maintain a minimum of 50 feet between houses on lots 24 and 25.
Do we have a second?
I'll second for discussion.
Discussion?
Oh, what did we decide about that?
Yeah,
first
I think the
condition?
first two, I would rather not have.
That's right, the last time we did this, we decided not to
Right.
include those conditions.
Do you want to withdraw your motion?
Sure, I'll withdraw my motion.
Before you withdraw, can we
Yes,
just,
that's
let's
something
just
to
discuss.
discuss.
Let's just
Sure,
discuss
okay.
for a couple minutes if we can.
Sure.
This is a different lot, in the sense that, as it being a corner lot, the way it is, and it is going to be much more visible on at least 3 of those sides, if not all 4.
One of the problems I have is, again, I never like handicapping a builder with
Yeah,
a- the taste or desires of a staff member that may or may not care about the cost of a product. And it gets to a situation where
I agree.
that, let the, the buyer who's going to buy this has to be aware of it, but more importantly, this is one builder who's building all these houses. If he builds something that's ugly, it's going to hurt him for the whole rest of the houses going down that street. And I can point to you in another neighborhood where a builder didn't put any shutters, put horrible landscaping, and it's right at the front entrance of the subdivision, and they wonder why that subdivision doesn't sell. And the first moment you go in, I drove in with my wife and said, "What's wrong?" She goes, "Oh my God, what an ugly house at the corner." And that has hurt those sales in that subdivision from day one. So,
And the second condition that you were questioning?
was the,
Final design of the house.
Should be approved by the city architect.
right,
And we haven't included those in the others either.
right.
But the wraparound porch, you're not suggesting is removed?
But you're suggesting keeping the wraparound porch?
No,
No,
Oh, okay.
just keeping the 50 feet.
Right.
yeah,
So the only condition is
50 feet. 50 feet.
Number 3.
The third bullet.
between the spacing.
So I'll remove my,
I remove my motion.
and I remove my second.
Okay. Floor is open for another motion.
Trying to get into it.
So I recommend that we approve petition number V15-006 with the following two requested variances to reduce the side corner setback from 40 feet to 30 feet, to reduce the side setback from 25 feet to 20 feet, with the one single recommended condition to maintain a minimum of 50 feet between houses on lots 24 and 25.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? We have a motion to approve V15-006 to reduce the side corner setback from 40 feet to 30 feet and to reduce the side setback from 25 feet to 20 feet with the following condition: maintain a minimum of 50 feet between houses on lots 24 and 25. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. It passed 5-1. Angela, that brings us to V15-007.
Last one.
And I don't have a, I do now. We're good, thank you.
Anybody else, anyone?
Did you email 7 to us?
They did. In fact, that was the one that you commented on to send a plan.
Okay, I'll look. Forgive me. I may not have it.
Hard copy for you.
And whenever you're ready, Angela, you can.
Go ahead, Angela.
You
I'll
can present.
catch up.
The site, 3521 Thicket Court, is basically 1 acre lot in the Grove on Birmingham Highway subdivision. It is zoned AG1 and is in the rural Milton overlay. The applicant, Joanne Ingram, is the representative for Ashton Woods Atlanta LLC. Ashton Woods proposes to build a single-family home with a detached garage on the lot. The house will be at least 55 feet in width. The applicant feels that this type of house is necessary in order to conform to the architectural theme of the surrounding community. As proposed, the house will not fit on the lot with the existing setbacks. Section 64-416C2 states that a side yard adjacent to the street is 40 feet. Since the applicant is proposing to reduce the setback by 10 feet, leaving a 30-foot side setback, a variance is required. Section 64-416C1 states that the side yard interior setback is 25 feet. Since the applicant is proposing to reduce the setback by 10 feet, leaving a 15-foot side setback, a variance is required. Section 64-416 states that the minimum front yard shall be 60 feet. The applicant proposes to reduce it to 40 feet. Therefore, a variance is required. Section 64-1141A1A states that a 60-foot rural view shed is required with a 40-foot undisturbed and a 20-foot impervious setback. Since the applicant proposes to reduce the rural view shed to 30 feet, a variance is required. On February 3rd, 2015, the DRB offered the following comments. Staff's suggestion to the developer was to go before the City Council for a CUP. The board recommends that the developer should follow staff's recommendation. Design of the houses on all lots shall be approved by the city architect. Staff held a focus meeting on February 4th, 2015, at which the following comments were provided. Building plan review, site plan review, the arborist, and DOT stormwater had no comments. The city architect, because this is one of the 4 variances for this subdivision, staff recommended that the applicant apply for a CUP. This will allow more flexibility for house placement on all of the lots. These houses should be subject to architectural review. Standards for consideration were read earlier. The applicant responds as follows. With regard to the front setback, approval of the requested variance will not offend the zoning ordinance's intent of providing adequate separation between structures in the adjacent right-of-way. The applicant will maintain the proposed structures at a safe distance from Thicket Court. With regard to the northern side yard setback, approval of the requested variance will not locate any structures on Lot 39 at a distance from another residential structure that would offend the zoning ordinance's intent of providing adequate building separation between adjacent structures. The applicant will maintain at least 40 feet of separation between the proposed structures on Lot 39 and the structures on Lot 38. With regard to the southern boundary, approval of the requested variance will not offend the zoning ordinance's intent of providing adequate separation between structures and adjacent right-of-ways. The applicant will maintain the proposed structures at a safe distance from the right-of-way of Birmingham Highway. Lot 39 is an angular tract, the shape of which compounds the effect of the required building setbacks. In this regard, the shape, size, and topography of the subject property and the resulting setbacks along the boundary line substantially limit the buildable area of the subject property and necessitate placement of the structure in the location proposed by the applicant. In addition, the location of primary and secondary septic area prevent the location of the proposed structures except as proposed by the applicant. Unless the variances are approved as requested, the home and detached garage may not be constructed in a manner in keeping with the architectural standards of the surrounding area. The requested variances are the minimum necessary to accommodate the proposed structures and allow the property to be developed in an economically feasible and physically practical manner. The applicant will provide adequate protection to adjoining properties by providing structures that are in keeping with aesthetics of the surrounding community. Approval of these proposed variances would not create a safety hazard or noxious condition. Staff response. Preserving the rural character of the area is very important to the residents of the city of Milton. The ordinance supports this via the requirement for the 60-foot rural view shed. Even without the rural view shed, a new house would normally be located a minimum of 40 feet from the right-of-way. If the house was not in a subdivision, it would be placed a minimum of 60 feet from the right-of-way. Allowing a house in a new subdivision to be located 30 feet from a right-of-way would offend the spirit and intent of the ordinance. There is nothing extraordinary about the lot that would prevent construction of a house that matches the neighborhood's aesthetics. The city architect has shown that by rotating the house and attaching the garage, a house can be built with a minimal intrusion into the required setbacks. Locating a house so that the side and back face a major thoroughfare would be a detriment to the public good and is something that the city of Milton tries to avoid. This does not meet the requirements for maintaining the rural character of the area. The proposed location would also be detrimental for the potential homeowners since their rear yard and deck would face Birmingham Highway. Approval of the variance to reduce the left side setback and denial of the other setback reductions would secure the public safety, health, and welfare. The city architect has shown that a house can be built on the lot, thus providing substantial justice to the applicant. Recommended conditions. Should the board choose to approve the application, staff recommends the following conditions. The house should be designed with 360-degree architecture, including an 8-foot deep wraparound porch facing Birmingham Highway and Pickett Court. The final design of the house should be approved by the city architect. Maintain a minimum of 50 feet between houses on lots 38 and 39. The front of the house should be paralleled with Pickett Court with the driveway off of Orchard Way, as shown on the red line site plan. Staff recommendation. Staff recommends denial of the petition to reduce the front setback from 60 feet to 40 feet. Staff recommends denial of the petition to reduce the side corner setback from 40 feet to 30 feet. Staff recommends denial of the petition to reduce the rural view shed from 60 feet to 30 feet. Staff recommends approval with conditions of the variances as follows. To reduce the side setback from 25 feet to 15 feet, and to reduce the rural view shed from 60 feet to 40 feet. This concludes the staff presentation.
Thank you. Any questions to staff from the board? Yes, sir.
What is a rural view shed?
The ordinance requires, along any of our major thoroughfares, a 40-foot undisturbed, I want to call it buffer, but there shouldn't be any grading also. 40 feet should be undisturbed, and then 20 additional feet for no structures. And we strive, the city arborist can enhance that as well, but we kind of strive to maintain the look and feel and character of what the original property was, so that if it was a pasture, we want to keep kind of a pasture feel. If it was densely wooded, we want to keep that feel. We don't want, to see the backs of, 3-story houses. We don't want to see walls lining the subdivision. We want to try and maintain the rural character of the city that was there before the subdivision became, as much as possible.
I have 2 follow-up questions to that,
Sure.
if you don't mind.
Go ahead. Sure.
My first follow-up on that is, in this view shed area, would there be a berm?
No. Berms.
Landscape
are
berm?
prohibited. They're prohibited.
Okay, I noticed from the plat, it looks like they're proposing a sidewalk there in the view shed.
Yeah, there are instances where there's some type of utility, and the sidewalk may meander in and out. We just work with it as best as we can.
And then finally, I noticed in this same view shed, there's a 15-foot trail easement. I'm assuming that's for the Milton Trail System?
It's the sidewalk and trail would kind of be one and the same.
Okay, and then my last question is, that trail easement, that 40-foot side yard, what's that measured off of?
The edge of the right-of-way.
Edge of the right-of-way. So within the right-of-way is a monument, sidewalk, and this easement, and it is essentially no grade alterations.
No grade alterations? I'd have to see the LDP to see if they were doing any grading.
Well, that's why I asked about the berm.
Right, they're not doing a berm, it's prohibited.
Where's the trail? Okay, I'll ask that. And the reason I'm asking those questions is, if this is flat land and they're talking about moving that house away from, or closer to, and there's not going to be any sort of grading from Birmingham Highway, that's what I'm trying to understand.
Traffic noise.
All the above.
Yeah.
Visual.
Any other questions for staff? This time, we'd like to invite the applicant forward to present.
Good evening, Joe Ingram, Ashton Woods Homes, 3820 Mansell Road, Alpharetta, Georgia, 30022.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm sure you guys are getting tired of seeing me by now. I may get Josh to go ahead and present this, so you just get to look at somebody different. This specific lot, and I'd like to get a point of clarification from the city's attorney, if I may. When we filed for LDP and ultimately platted this subdivision, it was prior to the rural viewshed ordinance being passed. So the point that I'm confused on is, while we are requesting a variance to the side setback, it's not actually a variance to that 60-foot rural viewshed. Am I correct in that?
I'm not sure. I mean, you submitted the application, so I don't really know. I mean, you requested a variance from the view shed.
No. He doesn't feel that they should have to comply with the view shed.
Whether you need to comply with the view shed or not is a very fact-driven question, which I can't answer without a lot more background details that aren't going to be present in all of this. So you need to decide whether, well, I don't know whether it was part of the, it showed up in the materials that I have as part of the request.
Okay. So just history of this and what got us here this evening. When we originally purchased the property, there was a GDOT approved entrance plan that the previous owner had that was still active for this site. Through the LDP process, what we heard from the city is, hey, guys, we're trying to really keep Milton rural. There are 6 or 7 specimen trees to the eastern portion of the site, which we're going to fall within GDOT proposed right-of-way. What GDOT came back to us, so I guess the city of Milton commented on it first. It was, hey guys, I know that GDOT governs this, but these trees look to be a line of sight issue, look to be a safety concern. So we're going to need something from GDOT in writing stating that these trees will never be removed. We met with GDOT. GDOT, being GDOT, said we'll tell you right here, right now, that it's not a line of sight issue, but as far as giving the city something in writing saying they'll never be removed, we can't do that. So, through, I don't know how many times we met with city staff, but ultimately to preserve these trees, which are, I think in the spirit of everything that's being asked for the rural view shed, to me that accommodates just that. And in doing so, we ultimately just said, hey, guys, we're going to try to appease both parties, because we had two governing bodies telling us we had to do different things. We realigned our entrance to the subdivision. When we did that, it pushed the entrance for the subdivision into Lot 39, creating the odd-shaped lot that exists today. I guess the rural view shed, to me, is a little bit confusing, just because we're platted for a 40-foot setback on that side of the home. So asking to decrease from a 60-foot setback to a 30-foot is, I don't know that we're necessarily asking to do that. It's more the request to reduce from a 40 to a 30. It's still a variance request. I understand that. I feel like through the LDP process of the community, we really tried to, I think saving these trees to the east were far more beneficial to the spirit of the rural viewshed ordinance than asking for a variance to the side yard setback. And I guess with that, I'm here to answer questions.
How many trees are between Birmingham Highway and the property?
A lot.
Yeah, because I went out there, but I was driving 50 miles an hour, and it was hard to count it, but it looked like there are a ton.
Right. And I guess what I really wish I'd have been prepared with a landscape plan tonight. I don't know why I didn't bring it. The entrance monumentation for the community is in. The trees are planted. We've still got a ton of tree recompense on the house side, to where I guess my thought would be we have more recompense than we can actually fit on this site. We've paid money into Milton's tree bank. So I think there's an opportunity to create more, possibly, of a landscape screening along that side of the home than what's currently there, or what will be a home than what's currently there.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
One thing I just want to make sure I understand. On Lot 39, did you have to dedicate that additional 20-foot of right-of-way along the state route? Is that one of the problems that made that lot a little bit tighter?
On
Birmingham Highway, yes, sir.
Yes, it was, the proposed right-of-way originally was east of there.
Yes, sir.
And it tapered way before you ever got there.
So that's one of the constraints on this lot as well, that you would have had it larger, but to work with DOT, did you get paid money for that right-of-way?
No.
So you basically donated it to the DOT?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Any public comment? Yes, sir.
No.
If you'd state your name and address for the board, we'd certainly appreciate it.
No, it's no problem. My name is Tony Philippon. I live at 15314 Birmingham Highway. I am the only neighbor, I suppose, for the development.
And would you show us where you are compared to where?
Sure. I own a property that goes basically here.
Okay, thank you.
I'm actually the neighbor to this property. I do recognize that developers have to maximize the profits that they pay for, that they try to earn off of properties like this. They try to balance the design of particular lots with GDOT considerations, as well as trying to make some money off of those particular lots, right? But there always comes time when there's an awkward lot, and this is this particular developer's awkward lot. And this particular awkward lot is in my front yard, essentially. And when you start, maybe I should say it differently, the awkwardness affects sometimes the values of properties next to it. When you start putting homes too close to each other, and when you start constraining these rural view sheds, which are essentially my front yard, also has a huge rural view shed. It must go back 100 feet. When people start putting things all the way at the front, that also impacts my ability to kind of see down the end of the street as well and enjoy my own property's views as well. So we are aware of the claustrophobic looks of some Alpharetta communities that start jamming homes really close to each other. And as we start looking at the western or the border between 38 and 39 and start moving together those two particular properties, or moving the property closer to the road, those are both the areas that concern me. My contention is this is an awkward lot. It didn't have to be designed this particular way. There's probably other ways you could have done this lot. In fact, you might not have even needed a lot 39. You could have done it differently and split the lots a little bit along the whole way up and given everyone a little bit more land. But in the pursuit of trying to maximize this lot has a particular issue. And they knew about it when they designed it. They knew about the setbacks. And while the rural view shed is new, I had to contend with it when I was finishing up my own build this June. And I'm sure that they also have to contend with the same particular issue as well. They're asking for 3 particular variances on 3 sides of the property. There's only one side left they didn't touch, which I suppose is the one closest to me, the rear, which would be on my side. But it seems to be odd that that when you design a property and you're a developer of the size of this particular company, you have so many choices of products to put on this particular land. There ought to be something that could fit there that doesn't constrain and put 2 homes really close to each other, therefore kind of putting homes close to each other on my side of my property. It does create, gaps, vision gaps down that side, or finding a way to stay within the particular rural view shed rules, which I had to live with, and I'm sure they should have to live with as well. They ought to have products that could fit into this particular property. They came up with a particular plot plan. They should have to live with the particular issues with it. I don't have any issues with the front in particular. So I know that this developer, particularly, they've been good neighbors. I have no particular personal qualms with it. It's just my particular issue is the spacing between the street and the particular home and the 2 homes in lot 38 and 39. I know that the developer has other choices. Obviously, they could have spaced the lots differently. That's done, obviously. But they could also look at different types of properties in there. And of course, while they've chosen a particular design and it has all particular homes with separated garages, I'll tell you, I'm the neighbor. I have 4 cars of garages, 2 2-car garages, and they're attached. So most of the community doesn't have detached garages, and I know that there was particular interest in the park at Broadwell for that particular design, and it's been very popular. I get that, but there are other designs that don't have to be this particular way. But they've chosen one on this particular lot. Just doesn't fit in this particular case potentially. I know that there may be a suggestion around planting, how I can plant to kind of screen and create more, block the view from the street or block the rear from my side yard into where these 2 homes come together. And I'll just say that a lot of planting takes a long time to grow in. A lot of the planting's already in across the sides of our property, nice 15-foot trees. But they're not going to block the view because my home actually sits up on a hill and looks down into this, so I can see all of this. And you obviously can't block these. You can see some of these homes that just get built so close to highways. It just seems to be awkward. It doesn't seem to be realistic in that particular case. I know that there may be some suggestion that maybe by orienting the property differently, if I could use the words, would make the property look funky from the particular street, and that from inside of the subdivision. And I get that. I understand that. My concern isn't necessarily there. My concerns are just on what it looks like from the front, because this is my particular view on my front of my house. So I think that I kind of summarized my particular concerns.
I got one real quick question.
Yeah, sure.
Specifically, where is your house relationship to lots 37, 38, and 39?
It would be right around between 38 and 37, right around there.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yep.
Do you have any problems coming out of your driveway?
Yes, that
And why is that?
First off, I think that particular road, realistically, has a problem. That bend is
Sure.
dangerous.
Yeah, that bend is.
That's a really dangerous bend. I wish they would do something differently, but that's what it is, right? And the other issue that I had was probably has to do with when you look both ways, you can see down one particular side,
Right.
which is they've done a really nice job of creating an open view right in front
Right.
of their area, so that really doesn't restrict my vision at all.
Right.
Down the other side, it's just a dangerous blind corner. So that would be my concern. The only other concern I'd say is that GDOT decided to do a double yellow stripe right in front of my house. So technically, the left-hand turn into my property as a result of the movement of that particular entryway actually makes my left-hand turn illegal into my house now. I know. Like no one even thought about that, but I'll wait until I have to deal with Milton's finest, I guess.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I heard all of your concerns, and I want to go through them one at a time.
Sure.
Your first concern was that the houses would be too close together between 38 and 39
Yeah.
by allowing that easement. There's quite an offset of those two houses based
Yep.
on the distance that they are from the street. So I just want you to bear with me. So therefore, they're looking to actually change the setback from the street to be 20 foot closer to the entranceway, which would move it away from your house, and still not have it in line with lot 38. So it actually may provide you some relief by moving that house towards the entranceway of Thicket Court. Is that your interpretation?
I saw two different I only was able to download what was provided, and I think it was only available this afternoon. So, yeah, this particular one, it's been drawn two particular ways. One is rotated it about 45 degrees.
Yeah, and that's the city architect did
Yeah.
that.
Either way of it doesn't change which way it's being faced, right?
No, they, in all cases, they face towards Thicket Court,
Yeah, no,
which is that bend.
Yep.
But the one relief that they're looking for is to allow it to be built closer to Thicket Court.
Oh, that's the
which
one
would
I don't
move it
have
away
concern
from your
with. That's
house.
the only one I don't have a concern with. It's the
That's
other
what-
three I have a concern with.
The other two.
There's
Two
two on
sides.
the two sides with three variances, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
because of the view shed.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
That's what I want to clarify.
Yes, sir.
Which direction is your house?
The vote you straight southward.
So straight to Birmingham Highway?
Straight to Birmingham Highway, yeah.
How big is your lot? Like
2
east
acres.
to west? East to
Oh,
west?
with east-west, it's, I don't know.
Pretty big. Does it take up, does it join, I can't see.
It looks like it's
It
about
joins 29, lots 29 and 28 also?
180
The top?
foot wide. It's
It's a little
180
bit
foot
narrower
wide.
on this end because it goes up and then it goes out and it comes up.
Okay,
But
okay.
it's a little bit narrower than you might look at from that line,
Yeah.
but it's,
Okay.
when I put the fence in, it was expensive. Yeah.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you. Appreciate you coming
problem.
forward.
Mr. Ingram, you have the option to
Say something.
make a
I've got
final
question.
statement.
I've got a question for the applicant.
Okay.
It's him.
Go ahead and ask your question first before he.
I just want to make sure I understand something, and the reason I asked the question about, did he have a problem getting out of his driveway? I look at Lot 1, and then I look at your Lot 39, and I go, why is there such a disparity in your two areas of the acreages of those two lots? Did the DOT require that your actual center line of your access be at that point? Was it something they required you to be there versus perhaps opposite that street across from your property, further on down? Was there some reason that it got put there and
Where we placed that entrance was done as a revision that we worked with GDOT on, and they ultimately said, if you guys are going to realign this entrance, this is where it needs to be. To get these trees, the trees are in what I believe they call the kill zone, which isn't necessarily a line of sight issue. It's more an issue with recovery if a car were to lose control. So I don't know if that answered your question.
So in other words, just looking at it, I mean, I'm a developer, I do stuff like this day in and day out. I go, man, this is no brainer. I just move the road over and I pick up extra land, I get better frontage, I don't do all these things. But again, I think, your hands got tied a little bit by DOT on this lot. which constrained you in what you had to do to kind of make it to some lot that's usable.
Correct.
I'm sure your initial plans had this much differently than what it is now. It's the old thing with many of our processes. You start in one direction saying, okay, I want quality lots, and then you go, I'll get what I can get.
100%
And that's kind of what happens sometimes when you're working with DOT. You want their approval, you give them right away, you work the city to save trees, and then at the same time, you kind of hope the city works with you a little bit as well.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead with your closing statement.
I don't think I have anything further.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Do you have some questions?
I just have a question.
Go ahead. Questions of staff?
Counselor?
Mm-hmm.
From just a rule of law, if and I then have a follow-up question, Angela, for you, if I may. If the applicant submitted their application to us prior to the rural view shed being changed, what law, do they fall under the old law, the old guideline, or the new guideline?
If they submitted the request for a variance beforehand?
Yes, sir. The statement that go ahead, I'm sorry.
The theory that is kind of being bandied about is a theory of vested rights and having a vested right to develop under a before a law change. And it's a very, very fact-driven question as to whether there was, there's 4 different categories of ways you can accrue a vested right. Typically, this situation we're discussing is some sort of approval of a plan or permit prior to the change in the law and reliance and substantial expenditures in reliance upon that approval. So there's just a lot of information that goes into the question before they can say they have to or they don't have to. If they haven't done anything, then the city, if they haven't done anything to vest their particular right before they request a variance, then they would need a variance if the law changes.
Understood. And Angela, is it correct that the rural view shed, just to reiterate again, it did change after they had submitted their application?
The rural view shed came into effect in July of 2014. I believe they had an approved LDP prior to the approval of the rural view shed.
Well, the plat that we see here is dated 7/25/14.
Right, but if you have an approved LDP, I'll let the staff talk about it.
That's fine.
What happens?
Any other
with an
questions?
LDP.
Any other questions of staff?
I do have a question
Yes, sir.
regarding this rural view shed. The 60-foot rural view shed, is that measured from the street to that side property line?
It's measured from the edge of the right-of-way
New right-of-way.
out.
To where? To the build line? Side property build line?
Well, I mean, they kind of overlap. I mean, it's 60 feet from the property line to, wherever the 60 feet ends.
I'm confused.
Yeah, I don't follow that.
Is it from
Okay.
the edge of the right-of-way to the edge? Where's the 60-foot start and end?
It's 40 foot undisturbed and then the additional 20 foot of impervious.
No structures, right?
So the build line.
What?
So in this case, it would be that it would be the 40 feet building line plus 20.
How far is that sidewalk on this plan set back from the right-of-way? Or set back from the edge of the street, I'm sorry.
Scale.
This is 25 feet.
I don't have a scale.
25 feet, I think.
Looks like around 20 feet.
Well,
looks like 20.
it's at a minimum 25 because you
Yeah,
gave
you're right, it
new
is.
right-of-way.
30 feet's a half an inch.
So what I'm really struggling with is I'm struggling with the application of a rural view
That's
shed in
correct.
this instance.
Correct.
I mean,
That's,
we work with what's there. If like in this case,
And so does he.
the sidewalk or trail
That's the problem.
meanders
He does
onto the
too.
property, we work with it. If it's
Right.
If it's unvegetated, we work with it. It's not a one-size-fits-all thing.
So if they didn't donate the right-of-way, there's another 20 feet.
Right.
They didn't move the trail in, there's another 10 feet.
That's right, it's an arbitrary
I
number.
mean,
Okay.
the right-of-way, you start from the new right-of-way. The right-of-way's dedication is a requirement no matter what. That was out of the city's hands. They're going to have to give up right-of-way no matter what. So you start from the new right-of-way back 60 feet.
This time, we'd like to close the public hearing, and the floor is open for a motion.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'd like to make a recommendation for approval of V15-007. This is to reduce the front yard setback from 60 feet to 40 feet, section 64-416, B, to reduce the side setback from 25 feet to 15 feet, section 64-416, C, 1, to reduce the side corner setback from 40 feet to 30 feet, section 64-416, C, 2, and to reduce the rural view shed from 60 feet to 30 feet, section 64-1141, A, 1, A, and and basically, that's it.
Do we have a second?
No.
I'll second it. Discussion?
Okay. The reason,
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Here's my concern. It goes back to the first case that we heard tonight, that we are now impeding upon a neighboring homeowner with what they are currently enjoying. It's not, if it was a vacant lot, I get it, I'd have less concern. It's not. The front setback, Todd, to your point, that it's moving closer to the road, all for it, 100%.
To the entranceway.
To the entranceway, yes, sir. The rural view shed, I agree with that. I think that's an arbitrary number. The middle two are where I have a problem with. That we're asking for the side setbacks and the corner setbacks to ultimately affect another homeowner that has no control of this and that purchases property with a certain expectation, and we're now changing the rules of the game.
I have a point and perhaps a mechanism to address the neighbor's issue as well as the extraordinary conditions of this property. And that is to, first of all, I think I concur with moving the build closer to the entranceway. That's one way of getting it away from the neighbor and increasing the building envelope. I think the side setback between lot 38 and 39 being reduced with the condition that there's a minimum of 50-foot spacing, as we had introduced earlier, also would achieve the same spirit.
Okay.
And move that property, allow that property to be moved further from Birmingham Highway. But I concur with you, providing additional relief along Birmingham Highway, I think would be detrimental to the neighbor as well as to the view shed.
Well, one of the reasons I made the motion, let's just go, number one, I don't think many people have problems with is for 60 to 40 for the front yard. On the side yard from 25 to 15, that's 10 foot. And then the next one is, again, really a side yard issue, which is 40 to 30. If they never donated that 20 additional feet of right-of-way to the DOT, they would have been well within their ability to get both of those distances on this lot. But because they donated that 20 additional feet of land, that's what threw them into all these curves. Now, I'm not saying that you don't pay a price to develop a piece of property, and by golly, you've got to work with it, but at the same time, you get to a point in a project where you've worked this way and worked that way, and you make things work.
I completely agree with you, but as I stated earlier, I think these are smart people, and they knew that was a state route, and they knew that along 372, rules are different.
Well, all I can say
I
is.
can't imagine that was a surprise.
I can't say that it would be necessarily a surprise, but at the same time, I could see how it would impact that lot. And
I
that's,
agree.
and
Sure,
that's where
I
that
agree.
20-foot, and as far as what it does to the neighboring community, again, look how far that house is off the street. Again, you're not gonna see the thing. In other words, if the right-of-way was back towards where the normal pavement and edge of curb is, you're just as far away, if not further, than any house you're gonna see up and down that street.
But because he's elevated, it does change things.
To me, again, you have to understand, if I go up and down that street, you could have been within 60 foot of the old right-of-way. And you're not gonna even have that situation with this one, if you looked at the old right-of-way.
Gary,
So
you
that's
drove
the
by
way.
here, what's the tree lineage like right here? Do you
You know what,
remember?
I didn't look down this road because there were cars, I just looked here because there were just.
You guys would know, we're talking like.
Angela probably
The
knows.
west side, Angela, west side of lot 39. Where's the tree?
Between-
What's the tree like?
Yeah.
Right here.
Is there much tree there?
The west side of lot 39?
Yeah.
Talking about on the open area?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not much.
Yeah, I don't
Oh,
recall any.
really?
Well, it looks pretty tree right
There's an
there.
aerial picture. Yeah, there's not much tree line right on Birmingham.
But anyway, that's the reason I said what I said, because of my belief that, again, you're looking at how far away it is off the street. And, we could look at imaginary lines of what the right-of-way line is and the new right-of-way and where the road is, but I'm basing it on where it is today.
I agree with Walt. And to sit here and say that the builder knows exactly what the DOT is going to do, I disagree with 100%.
I think there should be an extra, I understand where you're coming from, but I think there's.
Let me tell you, I think a lot of times they come in and take 10, 15, 20
Okay.
feet, and there is absolutely nothing you can do except for give it to them.
Oh, sure.
That happened to your property.
That happened to my property, both of my
Highway 9.
pieces of property.
Yeah.
And it's happened to more people than I know of.
Okay,
And
fair
you
point.
buy a piece of property and you start to do it, and then all of a sudden you get the surveyor, and then the state says, you've got to do this, this, and this, and there goes a chunk. And that's why my sign's all the way back to my building, and people can't pull in and pull out.
Sure.
Because they made me move back 11 feet further than the original plans were supposed to be. The DOT came down there after we'd already bought the property.
And look at lot one, just look at lot one.
Yeah.
Look, one lot is 1.462. Again, a normal person would just go, just move it over.
Yeah.
Well,
But
that's
you
what the
can't.
plan was.
The DOT wouldn't let you.
Wouldn't let you.
They say, this is where it is, we don't care what the shape
You
of your
talk
lot
about
looks
a
like.
hardship. This to me is a hardship. This is not self-imposed. This is the DOT that came in and did 90% of this. And there, I don't, let me tell you, no matter how this goes, I feel sorry for you because I know exactly what you're going through. I've been there.
Notice though, and I agree, guys, that this thing shifting down is clearly created a hardship. I'm not disputing that. But if you look at lots 1, 2, 3, which do abut Birmingham
Right.
Highway, they all have a 60-foot
Agree,
build line.
agree.
This one, we're talking, the proposal would be to shrink that to 30.
Right, but there's also a bigger right-of-way. If you notice how the right-of-way juts in, right at the back of lot one, the right-of-way actually goes back in. It's not 20 foot back. It's actually goes back to where it normally was. Do you see that? Right there at L12, and then it goes L11. Do you see the jog? So the right-of-way actually goes in.
But that's not where that's not actually where
But
there's.
that's where they measure
That's not
well,
where they're building, that's not the lot, though. That's actually more of a common area with the monument.
my personal feelings, they measured that new 60-foot rear building setback, and I don't have a scale, but I think they measured from the no access easement, where they measured
What
that
I was trying to
60-foot
emphasize
building.
is lots 1, 2, and 3 are all going to be built towards Thicket Court, which is away from Birmingham Highway, and they all have a 60-foot build line restriction along Birmingham Highway. This lot would be as little as 30.
But again, it's not at the same right-of-way line. In other words, if the right-of-way line was back to where it originally was before they donated the 20-foot, it'd be well over 60 foot. That's what I'm saying to you.
I see it, I can read it.
So,
When
so that's
they
you do
bought
the-
this property, they had plenty of places to put this house. Then when they made them move it back 20 feet, they lost that spot.
So it tightened everything up. And then at the same time, they made a move over. And again, just looking at lot 1 and 31 or whatever, 39, excuse me, you could tell they pushed it over.
Yeah.
No, I can see it.
And that's why I'm kind of like, okay, they worked with them on trees, they worked with them on this, they gave them this.
Now, let me also point out, using the city architect's alternate plan, which just changes the orientation of the property, allows them to maintain that 40 foot along Birmingham Highway and build essentially the same product.
And again, I'm saying it's still going to be 60 because nothing's going to get done with that 20 foot that the DOT has. That 20 foot's going to stay there. You're still 60 foot away.
Yeah.
So again, I understand. I mean, all these lines are imaginary anyway, but,
Right.
But, you know, in the big scope of things, I'd rather just say, no, hell with it, just, the law's the law, go away. But I know it's hard for me to say, you know, looking at what they gave to the city on DOT and the access trail and all these other things, it just makes it hard, that's all.
I mean, the only setback that I really have an issue with is the one along Birmingham Highway.
Yeah, I understand.
The rest I completely see as non-impacting,
But
actually beneficial to the neighbor to move the
But if
house.
they hadn't have pushed that back 20 feet, we wouldn't even be here talking about that one.
Correct.
See, we wouldn't, that was imposed by the DOT. I mean, we wouldn't even be here if they hadn't moved it back 20 feet for all the stuff they now require.
And
Hang on, they're using that argument, but you're saying they pushed it back 20 feet, now they need 25.
No, they need 10 on each. If you
They
look
need
at
10
both
on
there,
each.
they need 10 on the side and
My
10
bad,
on
I
that.
miscalculated. You're right.
That's okay.
You're right. You're right.
So that's what I was saying, is that
I mean,
I'm not trying to,
yeah, I'm not either.
I'm just trying to work with them.
I am too.
But is there any way, and I hear your point, I think you're making.
Maybe it's landscaping.
I don't think it is landscaping in large, are you talking about this, the concern from the neighbor?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the only reason it's not is just because I do know how high he sits.
The elevation doesn't.
It just,
If you look along the
Landscaping.
aerial, along the rear of lot 39, there is existing it's not on this property, it's on the neighbor's property.
Existing trees.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas it doesn't look like there's anything but scrub along Birmingham Highway.
Now, they
that
say
little
they've got,
view shed.
they have a bunch of recompense. In other words, if they, now, this is the other problem we got sometimes. If we ask them to plant some of those in those areas to further screen it, but
I don't
make it
know,
allow to count
just
towards
because the
recompense.
elevation shape differences.
But it'll take time. I mean, it's just like you heard Leland's at 30 feet. Those didn't get planted overnight. They grow. And be it magnolias or Lelands or whatever, it just takes time and, you know, 4 good summers and they'll be up 5 foot, so. But maybe that's a compliment. I'm trying to,
No,
You know.
I think we're all trying to say, look, I think we're
Yeah.
all saying the same thing. The onus was put on them from DOT.
That's right.
And I get that. I want to take into consideration, I think we all do, what the neighbor's concerns are. Where do the twain meet?
sure. But if you can't see the house, then, you know, that's the point I think I'm getting to, is if you want to screen it and say, okay, plant evergreen trees as part of your recompense in this area, you know, be it on the rear and front yard or frontage of Birmingham Highway, maybe that's a point of them doing that. I don't know. You know, you go with a double row, and they did it out front here. If you go to that apartment complex just down the street here, they planted.
Can we defer and ask them to go back and look at some alternatives?
Actually, here's my suggestion. Why don't we vote on what's on the table right now?
Yeah,
Let's see where we end up,
Let's do that.
and then.
Any more discussion?
Take it from there. Can we read the motion one more
Yeah,
time?
if you'll hand it to me, because I don't have the copy.
I'm sorry.
We have a motion and a second to approve V 15-007 to reduce the front setback from 60 feet to 40 feet, reference section 64-416, comma B, to reduce the side setback from 25 feet to 15 feet, section 64-416, comma C, comma 1, to reduce the side quarter setback from 40 feet to 30 feet, section 64-416, comma C, comma 2, and the final one is to reduce the rural view shed from 60 feet to 30 feet, section 64-1141, comma A, comma 1, comma A. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Okay.
Guys split.
No,
No,
it's just 4-2.
I'm sorry?
4-2.
It was 4-2.
So motion didn't carry. Is there another motion on the floor?
Sorry.
Oh,
Mr. Chair? I'll make a motion to approve V15-007, to approve Part 1, to reduce the front setback from 60 feet to 40 feet, to approve Part 2, to reduce the side setback from 25 feet to 15 feet, and to deny Part 3, to reduce the side corner setback from 40 feet to 30 feet, and to approve Part 4, to reduce the rural view shed from 60 feet to 30 feet. With one condition, to maintain a minimum of 50-foot spacing between the structures on lot 38 and 39.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Discussion?
So approval of Part 1, Part 2, and Part 4. Deny Part 3, which is the side corner setback from 40 to 30.
And the side
Be
corner?
down here. And with the condition to maintain a minimum of 50-foot spacing between the structures on lot 38 and 39.
Yeah, we'll get him a house.
It's better than nothing.
I think the rural view shed is,
I think that's an arbitrary
Right.
number. I do.
it's really hard to apply here.
Yeah, this is very different space because of DOT.
Explain that again now. Well, the 60 to 30, I mean, the arbitrariness of the fact that.
There's no clear-
it may be really-
there's no
There's
clear-
no clear starting in.
Oh, they're gonna run a
Maybe.
sidewalk right through the middle of the view shed.
That's already destroyed 20 feet.
Right.
The builder, more than likely, is gonna put natural screening along that side of the house because it abuts Birmingham Highway. So that's gonna be screened.
Yeah, but
Get
this,
something, but
they didn't get him anything.
Who didn't get the neighbor anything, is that what you're saying?
No, didn't get him anything.
We'll allow them to move the structure closer to,
Lot 38.
through the entranceway and to lot 38.
Yeah.
Right.
Any other discussion? We have a motion and a second to approve V 15-007 with the following requested variances. Number 1, to reduce the front setback from 60 feet to 40 feet. Number 2, to reduce the side setback from 25 feet to 15 feet. Number 3, deny to reduce the side corner setback from 40 feet to 30 feet. And number 4, to approve to reduce the rural view shed from 60 feet to 30 feet with one condition, and that's to maintain a 50-foot spacing between lots 38 and 39.
Structures.
Structures.
have to put spacing between structures.
Structures. All approve, raise your right hand. Hope that helps.
Good luck.
Thanks for building in Milton. Thank you, sir, for
Sir,
coming and
thank you.
voicing
Thank you
your
for coming
opinion.
out, sir.
We appreciate it.
Yeah. That's what this country was built on.
Yes, it was.
Gary just had to dissent.
Sometimes you have to be the Lone Ranger.
I'm sorry.
Consideration, V15-008, Angela, you want to present?
Some of these?
Hang on, guys.
Gentlemen, before you move on, I thought I had an understanding of what the vote was. What was the vote on that last?
5-1.
Okay.
Would you like me to raise my hand again?
I didn't hear the call for the opposed, so.
I just raised my hand instead. I want to be more like Cherokee County.
I'm not sure what happens in Cherokee County. Maybe
You should have been here earlier and you would have found out.
If the back door was open,
That
maybe I
is-
would have been here.
See?
V15-008.
08.
V15-008, Angela, will you please present?
Mr. Chair, staff would like to request that variance be deferred until the next hearing. We are working on some actually, we are trying to work out some additional parking so we don't need the variance, but we're still working on the site plan.
Is there garbage?
Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion for tabling, deferring,
V15-008.
V-008, V15-008 to defer it till March meeting, till our March Board of Zoning Appeals meeting.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? We have a motion and a second to defer V15-008 to our March 2015 meeting. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Consideration of appeals, Angela.
I have none.
Old business, Angela.
I have none.
Whoa, wait a minute, yes
Yeah,
you do.
You do. Did we ever
Where's
hear
our
from
vacant person?
our city council member that you were going to contact?
I have not heard an update. I sent a reminder, and the city clerk is going to speak to the appointer.
I think
and have
that's
not
fair
heard
enough.
anything since then.
New business? We need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
We have a second.
Sure.
Your name, sir?
Christopher.
I think it's been a long day.
Lord.
All in favor of adjourning, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Thank you.